Man, I don't know. I was just gonna go live and hang out and do nothing kind of thing, and then I checked the news a few minutes ago. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Not sure how I feel about it. Yeah, right. President of the peace. Right? Read a couple things here. I'm just catching up now. So I'm just catching up now. Let's see. Oh, that doesn't do that. Live coverage. U.S. military strikes Venezuela and takes Maduro into custody. Trump administration announces. CNN got this silly thing on here. Can't get on unless I sign on CNN. Who signs on to CNN? I put on the old. Let me see. Do I have to put on? The U.S. has sent Delta Force into the heart of Venezuela and extracted the sitting president along with his wife. It is unlike anything we have seen before. The only close comparison would be the capture of Panamanian leader Manuel Noriega, also special forces in 1989. Yeah, I don't know. Mike Lee, who is a one of the ones in the Congress that is like, it could be good. It could be good. He posted it about 2 hours ago. I look forward to learning what, if anything, might. Let's bring it up. Mike Lee posted, I look forward to learning what, if anything, might constitutionally justify this action in the absence of a declaration. It's early still. Just on my first coffee. Declaration of war authorization for the use of military force. And then he said he just got off the phone with Secretary Rubio. This was 49 minutes ago. Just got off the phone with Secretary Rubio. He informed me that Nicolas Maduro has been arrested by the U.S. personnel to stand trial on criminal charges in the United States, and that the kinetic action we saw tonight was deployed to protect and defend those executing the arrest warrant. This action likely falls within the president's inherent authority under Article 2 of the Constitution to protect U.S. personnel from an actual or imminent attack. He anticipates no further action in Venezuela now that Maduro is in custody. Huh. Interesting. Christ is King. Amen. Interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Man, oh man. I know that back in was that 2000 January 10th, 2005, the United States Department of State, the State Department posted, let me bring it up, condemning Nicolas Maduro's illegitimate attempt to seize power in Venezuela and announcing new actions against Maduro and his representatives, and to support the Venezuelan people. Today, Nicolas Maduro held an illegitimate presidential inauguration in Venezuela in a desperate attempt to seize power. The Venezuelan people and world know the truth. Maduro clearly lost the 24 election and has no right to claim the presidency. The United States rejects the National Electoral Council's fraudulent announcement that Maduro won the presidential election and does not recognize Maduro as the president of Venezuela. President-elect Gonzales Urita should be sworn in, and I'm blue collar guy, and the democratic transition should begin. We stand ready to support return to democracy in Venezuela. I'm curious to see what the Venezuelan people, 99-cent gas. uh, oh, yeah. What you been? Who talking about oil? You cooking, bitch? Little Chappelle show. Yeah, I'm just starting to open this up now myself. No, reminds me of this one scene. And I'll probably get copyrighted for playing, but it's worth it because it's perfect.
What about people who say you're only interested in the Middle East for oil?
What? Huh? Oil? Who said something about oil, bitch? You cooking? Oh. Yeah, come on, y'all get out.
Oh, the good old Chappelle show. Oh, that's a good comment though. That 99-cent gas and 99-cent gas. I don't know what's like I said, I'm just finding this stuff out right now too. Going across different news channels and kind of getting the scoop, but it seems like that's pretty much all the news there is right now. Delta Force went in, pulled out Maduro and his wife, and flew them back to the United States. Let me see here. Here's the CNN. Is it CNN? BBC. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio anticipates no further action against Venezuela following the capture of Nicolas Maduro, says a Republican senator. Oh, it's talking about Mike Lee. Pull this comment off there. Mike Lee confirmed Venezuela President Maduro's arrest following a phone call with Rubio, saying he anticipates no further action in Venezuela now that Maduro is in U.S. custody. Lee adds that the strikes were deployed to protect and defend those executing the arrest warrant. So who was executing the arrest warrant? Was it people in their own country, I hope? Earlier, Lee said that in a post on X, I look forward to learning what, if anything, might constitute justify the action and the absence of a declaration of war, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, man, I'm curious to see what happens. I know that there's the White House has put out there's going to be a press conference at 11 a.m. today. So we can find out, well, I guess more about this because, like I said, I'd like to know more. This is a pretty big deal. I'm going to bring this up here. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? What's the 24 hours? Monroe Doctrine. Mm-hmm. It's I don't know what to think about this one. It's a bit tricky, that's for sure. I put these old glasses on. Contacts ripped the other day. I think I have a piece of them in my eyeball. If there's retaliation over Venezuela, what do you think it looks like? I don't think there will be any. I'm pretty sure there won't be any. Like Venezuela, for the most part, wanted him out anyway. I believe the people wanted him out. The Monroe Doctrine kind of comes into play as well because it's our hemisphere, so to speak. Not ours, but Maduro was shot in the direct contact, but is in stable condition. CNN. There's a CNN report.
The U.S. Senate was not notified ahead of time of any military action in Venezuela, a source tells CNN. We want to go live now to Caracas and journalist Mary Mena, who's standing by for us. Mary, first of all, I want to get your reaction to this stunning news coming out of the U.S.
Well, so far we haven't heard from government officials. We just saw information sent by the Ministry of Defense, General Vladimir Padrino. He called for a massive deployment of military forces in Venezuela. That is the immediate reaction that we have so far. And for now, the city of Caracas remains in calm. It has been like that for the past couple of hours. This began at about 1:52 a.m. in the morning. Several blasts, as you said, we hear across the city. But right now, the capital is in silence. We heard from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying, blaming the U.S. for the attack before President Trump spoke about that. And then, we received information from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs saying there was 3 attacks in 3 strategic areas in Venezuela, in Miranda State, La Guaira State, and Aragua State. Those are key strategic locations where the military forces have infrastructure. So far, we hear the one here in Caracas, nearby this place in La Carlota Airport. It is a military airport that is mostly used for military forces. Then we will listen to many airplanes and helicopters passing by, but right now the city
It's important to
remains
listen to both
quiet
sides.
for the past 2 hours. We haven't heard for people, for example, coming to the streets, and the state channel keeps repeating this message from the Ministry of Defense, saying they want to calm the people to remain in calm, and then they will deploy military forces across the country. Right now, also, we are trying to get information of the reaction of regular citizens, and most citizens have decided to remain at home, especially due to the conditions. In the statement released by the government, they say they call for a state of emergency, and we don't know exactly the implications of this state of emergency, if people can, drive by the city, or they could be detained. So that is why many people have decided to stay at home and to wait for more news on the developments of this information. And of course, the importance of the new piece of information released by Donald Trump, saying that Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, are out of the country.
Out of the country. That's interesting. It's interesting, guys. I don't know. I'm not sure what to think. They can do this. They can do different things to us. They were there just to support the arresting officials. But if it was Biden, I'd be like, wow, he could be talking around, and they create that situation so they can say whatever they want. How do we know? We don't know. Interesting. I want to hear more about it. They said he was shot. I'm hearing reports. Reports that he was shot. You don't think China will back up Venezuela? No, I don't. I don't think that, because I don't think they're in any place to. China's pretty weak right now, to be honest with you. I think their economy is in trouble. That's all the reports I see about China. I don't think they're in any place to do that. Besides, they have their eyes focused on Taiwan, taking back Taiwan. Let's see if we can get any more news stories brought up here on it. A lot of stuff from CNN, a lot of stuff from a lot of liberal sources here. See what the Guardian says. They're about one of the worst. Curious. You got to see what the enemy, so to speak, says, right?
People love to say you can't enjoy a nice long drive in an all-electric vehicle, but the only thing
Amor. Ay, no. Mira eso.
It's pretty interesting. Unprecedented. Trump claims Maduro captured and flown out of the country. Intergovernmental organization in the Caribbean community, CARICOM, have released a statement saying that Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM met early on 3 January after reports of military action in Venezuela. it shared that CARICOM is actively monitoring the situation, which is of grave concern to the region, with possible implications for neighboring countries. CARICOM will continue to update the people of the region. Trinidad and Tobago were not involved in any of the ongoing military operations in Venezuela. There's some more images coming from out of Venezuela today. I'm very curious to see, first of all, what the press conference is all about today at noon, or I'm sorry, at 11, I believe they said. That's another angle to take. This is how the U.S. should look: decisive and overwhelming. I agree, and I cautiously agree, because and the America needs to be strong and needs to lead the world and all that kind of stuff. But we also have to do this again. They also have to. I don't want to be the police of the world either. You know what I mean? We're not supposed to be the police of the world. Let's see what some other news sources are saying about it here today. There's not going to be too much news about it, I don't think. I'll be interested to see eventually what happens with the press conference today, and the Venezuelan people. I'm very interested to see and how they react. Nicolas Maduro was indicted in the United States on corruption, drug trafficking, and other charges in 2020. And the State Department 2020. Who was president in 2020? Unless it was before that. Maybe it was before that. Trafficking and other charges in 2020, and the State Department had announced a $50 million reward for information leading to his arrest or conviction. In announcing the capture of Maduro, President Trump said it was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. The indictment was sworn out in the Southern District of New York. Interior Minister of Venezuela, considered one of Maduro's top enforcers, called for calm in televised remarks and urged Venezuelans to trust the leadership. Quote, "Let no one fall into despair. Let no one make things easier for the invading enemy," unquote. He said. Cabello also said, without providing evidence, that bombs had struck civilian buildings. Yeah, it's interesting, man. This is just started World War III in the Middle East. How's that? Now, see, someone mentioned earlier about China. This one here. Iran threatened America yesterday for interfering. Now we attack one of their closest allies. I mean, F Iran, first of all. They're shooting their own people in the streets right now who are protesting their tyrannical government. So who cares about Iran? And Iran's in no place. Their economy's tanking. Their money is being devalued. Their inflation's really high. Their people don't want that leadership in place, and they haven't for a long time. The government is smashes down anybody who stands up against them. This is unprecedented, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like, what I don't know. No wars, he said, and then he delivered. I mean, this isn't a war yet. It's not a war yet. It's not a war yet. Let's these are those moments when it's important to say, you know what, everybody, calm down. I think Bongino used to always go, hold, everybody hold. Let's see how this plays out. Give it 24 hours to unfold. Let's see how the Venezuelan people react to this. That's important, although that doesn't have anything to do with the legality side. Doesn't matter if they love it. If it's against it, if we broke some of our own laws to do it, then that's not good, right? Is this channel white privileged? Oh, there's no such thing as white privilege. Not anymore. Not anymore. Colombia's president, Gustavo Petro, said on social media, this is an hour ago, that his country's forces were being deployed to the border with Venezuela, and that there would be additional support in the event of massive influx of refugees. Argentina president celebrates the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Liberty advances. U.S. officials said there were no American casualties in the operation, but would not comment on Venezuelan casualties. If they don't recognize Maduro as, we don't, if the U.S. State Department doesn't recognize Maduro as a legitimate president and they take him out, which is pretty tricky by itself, but then if they take him out, well, the second in charge, Rodriguez, he's supposed to assume power, but he's part of that illegitimate administration, right? So what do we do there? Doesn't he still illegitimate? If Maduro was illegitimate, doesn't he still remain illegitimate? Maduro's wife was indeed shot in the face. Oh. That's oops. Oh man, yeah, so bear with us. I'm just trying to find the most recent news, right? Appreciate the help out there, Alexis. If your reports are true, this is all very interesting. That's for sure. So why do Christians ignore all the heinous S word God commanded in the Bible? What do you mean? 2 warning shots. America. Bring that up.
And successful military operations send to U.S. adversaries like China, Iran, Russia. What are they thinking today?
Well, you know, it's not a bad thing for the rest of the world to every once in a while see
I
the
agree.
strength, the coordination, the abilities of the U.S. military, the strongest military in the world. And I think, unfortunately, these reminders are necessary in the greater approach to overall deterrence, to not test the United States of America.
I agree with
We're
that.
dealing with this with Iran right now. They've got significant problems. They continually point the finger at the United States as the cause for all their problems. And the Iranian people are finally saying enough. What are you doing, Ayatollah? What are you doing, President of Iran, to make our lives better as we deal with 40 to 50% inflation because of your actions? Yes, the United States has implemented sanctions against Iran. Yes, the United States has decimated the nuclear capabilities of the country. But now they want to hear from their leaders what they're going to do. And they're no longer buying what the Ayatollah and others are selling in terms of making their lives better. So we're seeing this deterrent effect take place right now and saying, you know, enough of blaming the United States all the time. We know what they can do with their military. We know what they can do with their sanctions and tariffs, and enough is enough.
It's dramatic
Charles,
video.
we're just reporting coming out of the Miami Herald that Maduro apparently made a statement on Venezuelan state TV after the operation, shortly after the operation began on national state TV. He described the action as a grave military aggression, saying that this is an attack against the sovereignty of Venezuela. That comes, Charles, after for months, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been sending the message and tweeting and saying in interview after interview, reminding everyone that Maduro is not the president of Venezuela. His regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela, and that Maduro is the head of the Cartel del Solis, a narco-terror organization. And so as we look at the power vacuum created in Venezuela now, as we try and figure out who is going to be running the country, we have not yet heard from Maria Corina Machado, who has said that she is ready to take power, to take over here. What do you make of what we're likely to see here is going to be a power?
Some remnants from the Maduro regime regarding the sovereignty being violated of Venezuela. Normal talking points that you would expect to hear regarding the alleged aggression of the United States and how it's a violation of UN protocols, et cetera. But that won't fly anymore. That ship has passed. The legitimate president will come in once it's safe, once she's got the bully pulpit all to herself, once she's able to bring in the rest of the administration that she's got on tap to join her. And as far as Maduro goes, his last-ditch efforts at messaging are going to fail, just like his long-term leadership did.
In the recent weeks and months, there was a lot of speculation that Maduro was being offered asylum in places like Russia and Cuba. And of course, none of that came to fruition. Does that tell you something about the state of his power, or maybe the actual relationship that he has with those countries that might have taken him in taken him in for asylum?
Yeah, not shocking that there are various components potentially of this negotiating strategy from the United States. I would expect that some type of discussion related to what you just mentioned took place. I think ultimately right now, this outcome is better for the national security of the United States. While there may be a safe haven or two that were proposed early on in the negotiations, I think this is what you want to have. Look, we had a significant bounty on the location and arrest of Maduro. I think it's totally in the best interest of the country to have him now in custody, also have those related to him in custody in terms of his illicit business organizations with the cartels, and clean this mess up once and for all. As I said earlier, there's tons of evidence here against this regime.
What will happen in that country?
Let's see what MSNBC
also,
says.
We should account for the possibility that nothing happens. Effectively, that Maduro is gone, but that right now members of his regime are talking about the country as calm. One of the vice presidents saying of the U.S. of the Trump administration, what they tried to achieve with bombs and missiles they launched, they only partially succeeded in doing. What we have seen globally, Pisa, is condemnation, words of condemnation from countries that are American adversaries and partners of Venezuela. Russia, for example, immediately issuing a long statement saying that this operation is condemnable, but also offering President Putin and the Russian government as a kind of diplomat, as taking the opportunity, if you like, to try to say, well, we can help you bring about stability. There's condemnation, of course, from countries like Cuba, from countries like Iran. Iran has been a close ally of Venezuela, and for Iran, this is another problem because they right now have protests in the streets of Iran. And just in the past few days, President Trump suggesting that the U.S. could use kinetic force to attack the Iranian regime if it attacked those protesters. So some of the surprise this morning, Peter, is that President Trump was talking about Iran just in the past hours, and now we have this action in Venezuela. I mean, I think some of the conclusions that will be being drawn by governments around the world is, if you didn't already know it from 2025, that the Trump administration isn't messing around. I think there are also real risks that governments like Russia, like North Korea, like China see this as further confirmation that it is okay, if you like, for countries to intervene in neighboring countries in their local regions. I think it's also confirmation of what we saw with the Trump administration's national security strategy published just at the end of last year, that the US views the Western Hemisphere, its area, its region, if you like, as
I don't know either.
a crucial place for its focus, and that it is determined to try to bring about a safer region for the United States. Because you can remember, again, as I mentioned, Venezuela has had these links. The Maduro regime has had these links to Russia, has had these links to Iran. That has been viewed very negatively here in Washington. So there are all of those issues playing, and it will take time, Peter, because we don't know what happens next in Venezuela.
Keir, thank you so much. Courtney, I want to go back to you. Courtney, of course, leads our coverage from the Pentagon this morning as well, and get a better understanding about the military situation there. Because in the immediate hours after this, the question is, what happens to those 15,000 Americans who are on ships as part of the largest carrier strike group, the Ford strike group that is out there right now? We know they were heavily involved, obviously, in the operations that just took place right now. Can you sort of help us better understand the buildup that we have witnessed, with this ultimately appearing to be the punctuation mark?
I don't know.
Of it, but it doesn't conclude the operations there. What have we witnessed taking place, not just with the drone strikes on those alleged drug boats, but also with the flights that have been flying overhead in and around that area over the course of the last several weeks and months even?
Yeah, remember that the majority of those additional ships, now about a dozen that we know about, frankly, because there could be even more in the form of submarines. But the dozen or so ships, the more than 15,000 troops, and that's on land and at sea, the majority of them have been sent to the region to be part of this Operation Southern Spear. Now, this is this military operation that started a couple of months ago that has primarily been involved in the targeting and striking of alleged drug boats. Now, about 30 of them over since September 1st, of the last several months now. So it's not clear that the U.S. military would draw down the presence, because there's no indication that they're going to stop with those strikes. But the reality is, Peter, they have way more military capability in the region than they need for striking a couple of alleged drug boats every few days or so. So we could see some of the larger presence there. You mentioned the USS Gerald R. Ford. It's like the U.S. Navy's largest aircraft carrier. Remember, the Navy doesn't have an unlimited supply of aircraft carriers. They are needed all over the world. When one is sort of parked in one location for a while on one mission, it can sort of back up the deployments of others. It can cause a readiness issue in other regions. So we could see that and some of the other forces going home. But I don't expect that we will see, even with the military operation and this law enforcement operation that occurred in Venezuela today, I don't see a huge decrease coming in the military presence there, because the Pentagon has put such a priority on that region under the Trump administration. They have said that they want to go after who they call the narco traffickers. They often refer to them now as terrorists. So I would expect that we will continue to see the military presence there. Now, the question is, in recent days, even the more conventional forces that have been there, so the carrier, some of the aircraft that are on land nearby, they have been supplemented or almost augmented with more special forces. We heard Colonel Steve Warren talking about some of that earlier. Will some of those forces head back to the United States? We could see that. Presumably they were brought in specifically for this mission here. One of the big questions, of course, is we've seen some of the people who have said that they spoke with with Secretary Marco Rubio, who are indicating that this was sort of this was the operation that they were there to conduct, but there's still a lot
That
of
seems a bit,
factors that we don't know. Will
that comment
Venezuela
there.
somehow respond?
Ooh.
Is it possible that this
At
U.S.
FBI.
that there will be some sort of a response that will require more U.S. military? Again, we don't know if that's the case or not, but I wouldn't expect to see a large decrease in the presence immediately, Peter.
Courtney Kuby, our senior national security correspondent. Courtney, thank you. Colonel Steve Warren, our military analyst, is joining us as well. Colonel Warren, I want to pick up where Courtney just left us, and she raises a very good question about
keep the reporting
potential
going
for any
on.
response here. Again, as we wait for better details about whether this was in some form a negotiated exit, the idea of a capture operation would make it seem otherwise. As you noted to us earlier, you wouldn't require these types of fiery explosions if this was something that was agreed to by Nicolas Maduro and his regime right now. But what, to the best of your knowledge, what types of capabilities does a country like Venezuela have militarily as we anticipate the days ahead?
Yeah, these are great questions. The number one capability I think that the Venezuelan forces has, of course, is ground, right? The Venezuelans do not have the ability to really what we call project power, right? So it's difficult for the Venezuelan military to conduct operations outside the borders of Venezuela. So their ground forces, I think, are probably the most capable. Their sea and air forces are limited in their ability to move outside of Venezuelan territory. So, response capabilities, frankly, are limited. The Venezuelan Navy is only a handful of what we would call blue water capable vessels, so ships that can operate in deep water out at sea. It's primarily the Venezuelan Navy is primarily a coastal defense force, a coast guard, if you will, and their air force is also very limited and frankly no match for our much more sophisticated air capabilities that we have on our aircraft carriers and stationed on land nearby. So the short answer, that was a long response, but the short answer to your question is the Venezuelans have a very limited capability to strike back on American forces as we are currently arrayed.
Helps give us a better understanding of this. And Colonel Warren, I think a lot of people.
I want to see what the chat thinks about this while I bring up another source here. I'm seeing a lot of intelligent comments. I mean, a lot of not intelligent comments, obviously, but there's a lot of intelligent comments out there too that aren't like this one, where it's like, where'd it go here? Stand by Trump no matter what. Nope. That's not how it's supposed to work. You don't stand by him no matter what he does. But we got to wait and see. Like, this is one of those things, man. Hold just for a little bit. Let's see what Venezuela says about it, what the people say about it. Again, what the people say about it doesn't really matter as far as the legality of this. You know what I mean? That doesn't really make any difference whatsoever as far as that goes. Still some Epstein comments out here. I'm seeing other comments about how this is going to take the news away from the Somali stuff going on in Minnesota. That's one thing we have to pay attention to. That's one thing Americans are good for. We'll be all about one story and all over something. We'll just be all over it. And then some other news story, they'll be like, the people in charge, but let's drop this other news story here. Just ready to go plop. And they drop that into the bloodstream. And the next thing you know, no one's thinking about the Somali stuff anymore. Let's see here. I'm going to put this back up while I look for another one.
People are waking up, and though there have been major headlines
with Maduro gone than we were yesterday. That's what we don't know yet.
Colonel Steve Warren, an NBC News military analyst. Colonel Warren, thank you so much I want to briefly, we're gonna reset in a moment. We're gonna get to the Today Show a short time from now to pick up our live coverage. But Keir Simmons, I want to get to you just for one final thought on this before we reorganize and help update our audiences on what's been taking place here about just the dramatic change that took place. There had been an escalation over months, and now obviously it culminates in this dramatic action overnight with the before dawn in Venezuela, there, the fiery airstrikes, low-flying helicopters, the capture of Nicolas Maduro, and now really a question mark about what happens next.
I mean, we're just in
absolutely a question mark.
Invasion,
as you have been saying, a
right?
question mark over what the ambition is here, but something of a question mark, because perhaps this is a message from the Trump administration to say, do what we say, or we will intervene kinetically and remove you. That is a message. Clearly, Maduro has now received that message, but other leaders around the world may well be listening. Well, they will be listening. And another aspect to this too, Peter, we know what the US Trump administration's policy is because it was set out in the national security strategy just at the end of last year.
Right.
And it identified.
See what Sky News thinks about it.
Control over what the special forces have done.
Yes.
What his military can do.
Always
What he
interesting to
doesn't
me to
have
see what other
control
news
over.
sources think
Well,
across the world.
Let me pose it as a question. How
Sometimes
much
that's where you have to
control,
go
how
for
much
the
influence
real
will Trump
news.
have over the kinds of decisions that will be taken inside Venezuela in the coming weeks?
Yeah, it is
now?
a very good point and a very good question. And I'm probably limited. Now, a lot hinges on this word that he tweeted out in the middle of the night.
Yes,
probably
yes,
having
good point.
Bleary-eyed, woken up to say his plans are going ahead, which is captured. Now, to me, it does look like they're captured. But I don't know how the hell Delta Force would have got to him.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Without a gunfight, unless it was arranged. Because there's a 50 million bounty on his head.
It's a lot of power the American government
200
has.
Delta
The military is
Force,
pretty remarkable.
among the top operatives in the world. But where's the presidential bodyguard? So a lot hinges on just how much this is agreed. That he agrees to be captured. The regime agreed to kick a big fuss about it, but then they go back to normal. That doesn't look like the scenario to me. So if this wasn't agreed with the whole regime, then I think they've got pretty limited options inside. The people with the hands on the triggers inside the country are still the regime.
Yeah, and presumably Trump won't want to send forces in at all. There's one other interesting point here, Tim, which is playing out right now with the Russian foreign ministry condemning all this and absolutely clear about their condemnation of it. You've got Trump trying to woo Putin over Ukraine, trying to push Putin towards some sort of deal over Ukraine. And yet now we have this. We have Venezuela supported by Russia. You've got the foreign minister issuing these statements, concerned by reports, forcibly removed, aggressive actions by the United States. You know, where does this leave the whole Trump Putin, Ukraine thing?
In the same place as it was, I would say. Okay, you made 2 points there. One is about American domestic opinion.
This
I
is
agree
it. Yeah.
absolutely
It's going to be
with you
interesting.
that he was elected ending the endless wars, the forever wars.
It's going to be interesting seeing what all the people say about this before. Watch the narratives before the Trump press conference at 11 o'clock, which we will be live for. I don't think we can miss it.
Is going to get too upset. America's foes and some of their friends will condemn this, but that's priced in from the beginning. And the more controversial and perhaps depressing point, I think, and more important point, is that although you're absolutely right to ask about international law and about reaction and all the rest of it, that's the previous decade. This is a new time. This is a new time where international law is being relegated year after year after year, and the UN and the Security Council, and they're being relegated year after year after year. It's a new time, and it is a time of hard power.
Yeah, and it's a dangerous time. Tim, just stay
It
with us
is.
because there's all sorts of reactions.
It
And
is.
I'm interested to know what you're going to say off the back of this because all sorts of reaction from the EU saying monitoring situations
Yeah.
and caring
Everybody
for
else
their
can shut the
nationals
hell up.
there and trying to work out whether they need to evacuate them and so forth. But domestically, Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage, has just tweeted this: the American actions in Venezuela overnight are unorthodox and contrary to international law. But if they make China and Russia think twice, it may be a good thing. I hope the Venezuelan people can now turn a new leaf without Maduro. That's Nigel Farage, who clearly has been close to the White House and to Trump. Sir Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, has also tweeted, Keir Starmer should condemn Trump's illegal action in Venezuela. Maduro is a brutal
He welcomes
and
Muslim
illegitimate
terrorists into
dictator,
his
but
country.
unlawful
Celebrates
attacks
it.
like this make us all less safe. Trump is giving a green light to the likes of Putin and Xi to attack other countries.
I don't think there's going to be any retaliation. What retaliation
Tim,
could possibly
really
happen?
follows on
Would
from
have to
what
be
you were
China or
saying,
Russia.
that there is this
Russia's
kind of,
pretty much tied up,
you know,
and China doesn't
flouting of
have the power right
international
now.
law. We've seen it in Ukraine.
America is taking
We've
the
seen it
lead, that's
again
for
now,
sure.
although,
Can't argue that.
You know, it remains
Can't
to be
argue that.
seen what happens. And the interesting thing is that many countries don't seem quite sure how to react to this.
No, they don't. Again, that's the Trump effect and the fact that we're in these new times. The first thing you said was about the EU, and again, because we're in the times we're in, I'm reminded of Stalin's question about Pope's condemnation of something. How many divisions has the Pope got? How many divisions have the EU got? None. And so I'm not saying it's irrelevant, these reactions, because it's part of discourse and how societies argue the events and then arrive at how we feel about things. So it's not irrelevant in that sense, but it's irrelevant in what actually happens on the ground. On Mr. Farage's point, well, by his argument, if the President Xi of China puts forward a scenario.
There's a lot of videos out here. I'm trying to find another source. There's a lot out here just showing what Venezuela looks like right now.
Therefore, when the Chinese special forces fly into Taiwan and seize the president, it's the same as this, which is why these are dangerous times when you feel you can just do that. Oh, by the way, I just reminded about where the hell Maduro is. I was looking at a map. It's about 30 minutes flight time to the coast, helicopter, and I looked at where the US aircraft carrier is. It's only about another 40 miles away, so he may well be there. Sorry, a diversion. And lastly, on what the Liberal Democrat leader said, yes, he's right, and it's part of the debate. It's irrelevant to what happens today.
Yeah, and just very quickly, I mean, what's your instinct? Where do you think this is? Well, it's a very difficult question. I mean, but where do you think it is heading?
For trouble, but I suspect this is not yet regime change.
Tim Marshall, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
You know what you should do? You should sanction me. Sanction me with your army. Oh, wait a minute. You don't have an army. I guess that means you need to shut the up. That's what I do if I didn't have no army. I would shut up. Shut the
Just saying. We got one. There's another source. It looks like there's some video from the ground. Let me see here.
Parando carros. Bueno, me imagino que están defendiendo la posición, pero no les va a durar mucho. No, van a ir por ellos, van a ir por ellos.
Tanks reach Maduro's presidential palace.
Mira esto. Ay, papi, también.
This video. Let's see this video. This appears to be video from the ground. during the action.
La gente está como loca caminando, mira.
Unverified, of course, it says on the screen. Curious to know if the Venezuelan military had something to do with it, right? How, if they were involved and all that's important.
Mira. Mira. Ay, papi, también chorreado. Los van a... Mierda, qué desastre. Mira. Mira.
Oh my God.
Mira. Bajando a la gente.
Mira. Put some of these aside and
parando carro.
A little bit later. I want to watch this video here.
Bueno, me imagino que están defendiendo la posición, pero no les va a durar mucho.
That's not very nice.
No, van a ir por ellos, van a ir por ellos. Mira esto.
People are freaking out, huh? Them's out here freaking out. They should be kidnapped. They should be taken out. They should have a heart attack. What's up with these people? It's pretty crazy, man.
Marico.
This is interesting, that's for sure.
Mira, mira. Está viendo. La gente, mira, mira, cómo está la gente, ¿eh? Una locura estaba ahí. ¿Está viendo? ¿Ah? Bueno, mira.
Yeah.
La gente está como loca caminando, mira.
If Delta Force wants you, you're getting got. That's how that comment is. That's like a repeat now. Yeah, this is crazy, guys. I mean, looking for some more sources here to get. Maybe there's some other video we could find, or
to Florida, for example, taken out boats or semi-submersible vessels with, allegedly carrying drugs into the United States. They've blown them up and killed those on board. So America has been on the offensive against Venezuela, but this is quite, a huge mission where you physically take the president of Venezuela into captivity.
that's crazy that you could just go into a country and take the president.
In a special operation last
Dang.
week.
Just dang. How do you get there?
Breaking news coming in of Donald Trump putting out this post saying that the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. The operation was done in conjunction
Hugo
with
Chavez
law
did that.
enforcement. Details to follow. There will
Hugo
be a
Chavez,
news conference
but yeah.
today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Is what Donald Trump Jr. has. This is what Donald Trump has gone on to say. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, putting out that post. Vishal Vivek, my colleague, joining us. Vishal, after 7 strikes were heard at 2 a.m. local time in Venezuela, is Donald Trump taking responsibility for those strikes?
Yes, and this comes at a time when we've heard several explosions across Caracas, which is the capital of Venezuela. We've reported that at least 7 explosions have happened across the city and the southern part of the city in total darkness. Now we have the reason behind these explosions. Donald Trump himself has gone on social media and accepted that US has conducted these operations. And this doesn't really come as a surprise because the US had been expected to carry out these operations. The US was in direct touch with,
This is wild.
there was a direct connection between both sides because the US had been threatening the Venezuelan side for months now that there will be some operation. We had seen glimpses of it in the recent past. About 7-8 days ago, there was a strike on the harbor of Venezuela. The territory of Venezuela had already been attacked. This is the attack in the heart of the capital, and the biggest military installation has also been attacked by the US side. What kind of damage has been done? That remains to be seen. Probably that will be
It's interesting to see different news sources, you know, instead of the same mainstream,
expected around 10 p.m. Indian Standard Time.
the ones that push the same propaganda, but it's also nice to see America
More details, but these seem to be
in a position of
The
strength.
president and his wife have been captured and they've been flown out of the country.
Yes, so that is what the US president has reportedly claimed. We'll have to wait for confirmation on some other level also because since Venezuela has been, ruled over by the Maduro government for almost 12, 13 years, he rules with an iron fist.
I want to talk a little bit, but I don't know what I can say. This is all developing, so it's important that we just kind of
claiming that
hold.
that seems to be the case. That would be the biggest upheaval in South America in decades or so, because the US had been involved in many operations in the South American continent in the last few decades. In the last 4 or 5 decades, there have been many regime changes in which CIA had reportedly been involved. What kind of operations were undertaken to overthrow him? That all remains to be seen. What kind of damage has been done? All of those details are yet to be furnished.
Right, 7 different locations where explosions were heard at 2 o'clock in the dead of the night. And after those strikes, in fact, it is the leader of Venezuela who had claimed that this is, a strike by the United States because Donald Trump has been threatening to do this for a while now.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we've seen this for the last few months, that there have been several levels of escalations. First off, it started with some troop deployment across the Caribbean. Caribbean is the region right next to Venezuela, where we've seen thousands of troops, at least 8 to 15,000 US troops were stationed. US had also mobilized its biggest warship, the USS Gerald Ford, near about the territory of Venezuela, threatening these operations. But the fact that the new year would start with these operations, with such big operation now, and now we've heard that the leader of Venezuela has been removed. So all of these operations will be carried out so fast. No expert would have guessed this. Many experts had.
Seeing on here, the Venezuela defense minister condemns U.S. barbarity, whatever. It was before that, right there. Opposition sources say Maduro capture was negotiated.
This is how Donald Trump confirmed the military action, writing on Truth Social. He said the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement.
I want to know what that means. We need to. We'll find out, I guess, at 11 o'clock today. Whenever he has the press conference.
Video footage.
We're gonna have to wait for the press conference.
As a series of explosions take place. At least 7 were heard.
It's like I said, I'm not sure how I feel about it just yet.
His country would resist, and that some civilian areas had been hit.
Dramatic, low-flying, helicopters. I want to see more. I heard a report that they shot his wife in the face. I don't know if that's true or not. None of that stuff's going to come out yet. This is the moment. This is how we handle these situations, right? You hold, just like Bongino used to say all the time. But I used to say, just wait. Everybody hold up. Wait. Everybody wait. Relax. Let it play out a little bit. We got to let it play out a little bit and find out the details before we really make any decisions on the legality and all the other stuff. What happened, if it was too brutal, if it was whatever, we have to wait and see. Hey man, this entire thing was never about drugs or oil. It's Chinese influence, which is the greatest threat to America.
I live here in Chicago.
I mean, can't say I disagree with that.
Planes flying and explosions. Several explosions.
That's a good question. Have you leftards received your ridiculous orange man bad talking points yet? They'll be out. They're probably out now from the original sources.
A Venezuelan military vehicle can be seen here patrolling near the presidential palace, the Miraflores Palace in Caracas. Sirens and explosions can also be heard in the background. This amid reports that people are beginning to flee the capital. And we are starting to see images showing evidence of some social unrest in Caracas. These pictures show armed men confronting cars and firing gunshots. Venezuela's interior minister has been seen wearing a flak jacket and protective gear and surrounded by armed men from, he says, from the military and the security services. He's been seeking to reassure the people of Venezuela.
I call
I
on
assume
our
I'm
people to
not
remain calm.
monetized.
Trust in our leadership. Trust in the political and military high command
But
to
this is
handle the
important.
situation we are facing. Remain calm. Do not give in to despair. Do not make things easier for the invading enemy, the terrorist enemy that cowardly attacked us. Do not make things easier for them. This is not the first struggle. It is not the first battle that some have waged against this people, believing that they will defeat us.
It's been our US correspondent David Blevins in Washington. And David, in many ways, this has been a kind of slow burn operation by the Americans, but in the last few hours, a dramatic escalation.
A dramatic escalation, Mark, yes.
I don't know what you're
and
supposed to
the
think about
situation
this.
remains so fluid. Quite frankly, it's difficult to keep track of it. We've got the president posting from Mar-a-Lago in Florida that there has been this large-scale strike, and also surprising
It's
many
when everybody's
people by
scrambling. So
announcing that
this
the
is how we're
US
supposed to
has
handle this
captured
stuff. When things like this happen, we have to wait. We have to calm down and not make any assumptions yet, not come to any conclusions. You go out there and you start preaching about what you're right and they're wrong.
and that he will face justice on US soil. At the same time, we're also
Doing that you're right and they're wrong thing. You end up looking stupid later because you make dumb comments or just,
emergency. We've heard from the vice
I
president.
don't know. We got to wait and see.
From the interior minister. So if the ultimate goal was regime change, well, the leader appears to have been removed either of his own free will or by.
You have to take it easy.
Certainly the regime very much remains still in
Julius, you'll have to take it with a grain of salt from that I spelled this wrong guy. He's a bit unhinged. He's your classic. He's your classic. What's the word? Like conditioned lefty. He's right all the time, no matter what. That's it. He's right. Period. There's no right. He's always right. You can't be right. Trump is a savage. Love him.
Five more alleged drug smuggling boats, and Maduro said he was open to talks with the US about tackling drug trafficking.
The US government knows, because we've told many of their spokespeople that if they want to seriously discuss,
He really wants to make it about him. We're not going to let that happen. Trump is an idiot. People say all the time he's stupid, he's an idiot, and this and that. And I'm like, how can he be? You can't. He's a billionaire. Okay, there's no idiot billionaires, right? I can't see it.
Based in Venezuela, Paul Dobson, and began by asking.
SEALs went in there and grabbed the Venezuelan president and his wife, took him out of country, and that's where we're at pretty much right now. That's where we're at pretty much now.
Many will be starting their day to
How
this
about
news.
Venezuelans waking
They'll
up?
be contacting friends and family in the Caracas area to see if they are safe and sound. And there will be, like I said, much anxiety as to what is going to happen next. We've seen the US government reportedly say that there will be no more strikes, that they have achieved what they wanted. Apparently, Marco Rubio said this.
Yeah,
But
that's important.
The future in the
On an
next few
ongoing.
hours and days in Venezuela is very uncertain.
We've had this statement from the defense ministry deploying the armed forces, military vehicles around the palace. The defense minister calling it a barbaric act of aggression, which suggests that the military didn't get advance
Can't
knowledge
find
of this
any
because
other
there is
sources
the
right now. Most
suggestion
people aren't
that it was
reporting.
some
I
sort
get
of
up pretty early.
negotiated exit.
I get up pretty early in the morning when I wasn't going to go on this morning, and then I saw this news here, and I'm like, oh man, I got to find, if I'm going to be sitting here doing and trying to figure out what's going on, then I might as well be on.
Caracas, just so your viewers have some idea.
Checking a couple
is
things
by
here.
land about 45 minutes from the Venezuelan coast. So there's a certain
Yeah, you know he's on the
there to get
aircraft
to
carrier.
downtown Caracas, and there seemed to be effectively no military response from the anti-aircraft missile batteries.
That's
on the
important.
Venezuelan coast
No response
or
from
within
the
Caracas
anti-aircraft.
So questions already being asked about the military response to the bombings, or the lack of rather, and what this could potentially mean in terms of was this a negotiated exit? Was this a forced exit?
Hey, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. I hate saying that. I hate that. Like, share, and subscribe. Check out my store at shop.magamericans.com.
The Venezuelan people have
Some
no
stuff on
idea
there
who
my
is
kids designed
actually
even.
running Venezuela, or do we assume that it is still the vice president or the armed forces?
Essentially, here I see three potential scenarios. According to the Venezuelan constitution, if the president is inhabilitated, it is the vice president who assumes power. This is what the government will be arguing.
If he's
and
illegitimate.
Delcy Rodriguez, the current vice president, will surely be pushing for. However, there is also a scenario whereby the military will now assume rule of the country, given the military operations underway. And this is also a plausible scenario. But the Venezuelan opposition will be arguing, in fact, the constitutional thread was broken in 2024 with the elections, to which we still, at this point, don't know precisely who won. The results were never published. And so the opposition will argue that the vice president should not assume power because effectively her and her government and Nicolas Maduro's government were never elected into power. So these are the scenarios, and the battle, the struggle for power between the different sectors will be fierce and will be immediate.
And is the key, Paul, do you think, where the loyalty of the senior generals actually lie now, given they're no longer in the country?
This, without a doubt, will be
This
very
is,
important.
man,
This is essentially
I don't know what to think.
It's very difficult, almost impossible to gauge the level.
Seems
of
like he
support
legally
of
is allowed to
top-ranking
do this.
generals publicly.
Oops.
Maduro was actually carried out. Now, the opposition have been
It seems
talking
like,
to us, very senior members of the opposition, and they're saying that, in their opinion, this was actually a deal, that there'd been negotiations, which we know has been confirmed by President Trump, between Trump and Maduro. It is said, when I was in Caracas, the rumor mill was that Maduro asked for a number of his top military commanders, including his wife, and a lot of money to leave. That was his conditions, and he was told, we are led to believe the answer is no, it's you and your wife, and you will have a safe exit for the country. But now we're hearing that the United States is considering charges. He's already been indicted. Maduro's been indicted for drug trafficking beforehand, and that he will face the law in the United States, which of course they have done with leaders in the past. Though every expectation in Caracas when I was there is that Maduro was doing a deal which would allow him to go to a third-party country. Now, of course, we don't know what exactly is going to happen, but it's certainly the president has said that he was captured. President Trump has said he was captured, which slightly changes the narrative. But where we are is that he's gone. And I think the critical thing now is what happens in the coming hours. Now, one of the sort of working theories from people in Caracas, and this is quite senior business leaders, senior leaders generally in the community that I've known for a number of years, their view is that if the Americans were to carry out strikes, they would hope that the public would come out onto the streets and perhaps bring down the administration of Maduro. That's what they thought, and they have a lot of
This is
contacts
like I said, I'm not sure what to think about this just yet. It's important that we don't make any assumptions and
being captured.
wait and let this play out.
Or at least has given himself up one of the other. Either way, he's
It
gone.
definitely seems like there was a deal.
So the opposition has been saying that they're ready to form a government to take over in a peaceful transition. They say that they've got a network that's ready to do it. And they've always indicated that some of the military is on board with them. The question is, what military is on board with them? How senior are they? And we know that the actual military itself, the one under Maduro, all made a lot of money from Maduro with government contracts and all sorts of businesses, including mining and oil, as well as and their own money that they were making from drug dealing. So are they prepared to stand down? Are there enough forces that are perhaps supporting the opposition who could actually come out onto the streets and protect people? Or if they go out in the streets and the current government just refuses to hand over power, could there be bloodshed on the streets? In the past, there has been. Now, there have been many, there's been a history of
nice distraction from Epstein, nice distraction from Epstein, nice distraction from Somalia. You could say that about a bunch of stuff. The news cycle never stops.
Leaders have been arrested. And are in jail. They're facing charges for terrorism and the like, but these trials virtually never start. They just sit there for as long as the government is still necessary.
Regime change is always really tricky. I'm not big on regime change. Now, if we're not involved anymore and we back away and let the Venezuelan people handle this themselves, that's a great idea. And but we can't be involved in it. Although now there's going to be just
reports that America said that's it, enough's enough, and that it's been accomplished. But it isn't.
It's going to be a tricky situation there because unless they already had a plan in place, which I'm hoping they did with Trump being involved and everything, I'm hoping that they had a plan in place for this. What's going to happen in Venezuela after, but I don't want us to be involved in I just don't want us to be involved.
Is it really the important thing now what the senior generals decide to do?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. That is really the critical thing. Two things, I suppose, and we'll get indicators quite quickly. If the public take to the streets, how do the security forces react to them? Because they are absolutely everywhere.
I actually have a clip of someone saying it's against international law, but you don't trust my source.
So the public are out.
Well, that's the thing.
Choose to stop the demonstrations.
Until we know the real details, how do we really know? It seems like it would be, that's for sure. That'd be the easy play, that it would be against international law.
That would be an indicator, perhaps, that the military.
But we'll have to wait and see. It doesn't matter. The sources everybody's going to say different things, and not most often the reporting that comes out right after something like this is usually debunked or inaccurate in a lot of ways and stuff like that. Like I said, we got to wait. We'll know more by 11 o'clock. I believe that's when they said they were going to do I saw another report that it was going to be 4 p.m., but they need to do it soon. A press conference at the White House with Trump to see what really is going on.
It's really vital to what happens in the
not to say that we have to trust and believe everything that they say everything that comes from the White House. You never want to do that. You always want to validate sources. But at this point, like where we're at in life, none of us can. I can't be like, let me fly down real quick and see what's going on. With my own eyes, we can't do that. We have to trust the news sources that we have, but you have to find news sources that are trustworthy. The ones that don't, create narratives just to push and influence people.
Good morning for me right now. Well, I just read it like extraofficial information that Delcy Rodriguez, she left the country also. She might be in Moscow right now. She sent a video that has been recorded previously, just like Padrino Lopez. So that changes everything what is happening and what we all have been presumed.
Crazy news to wake up to.
Happening with Maduro and Celia Flores left in the country. So that changes the game. Now, if that information get to be real and get fully confirmed, that can be the opening of the new era in Venezuela, and maybe Maria Corina Machado is coming really soon to see how the things are going to be for Venezuelans in the couple
Call
of
them out.
weeks.
It doesn't change the fact that it would still be illegal if they voided their own laws. We have to. I mean, we have to wait to see who worked with America to do this. Like this could not. Well, it could have been, but it most likely was not just America going in there and doing this on their own. There had to have been some kind of a deal or something working with the opposition down there to get this done. And if they, it just all depends, man. There's just so much to find out right now. This is just, to the people that haven't been around and don't watch all the news and that kind of stuff and don't know. They never seen something like this before. You have to be calm and wait it out and see what happens. Give it 24 hours. If this is over, like they're saying it's over and there's not going to be any more military action and yada, 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 then let's just wait and see and get the reports out and see what happens. If this is a one action, or if it's going to be like something that drags on.
As a new, I don't know how to say it, in the power of the new leaders of the political movement, such as Maria Corina Machado.
Right now, a lot of it's going to be clickbait. There's going to be a lot of people out there trying to get on. Like, I usually I'll get up and I'm on anyway now, right? But there's a lot of people that might be getting on just to get the views and hey, like, share, and subscribe, by the way, to get the views and everything like that. And they'll say things and make claims, because if you make a claim, like for instance, someone said that Maduro's wife was shot in the face. Now I haven't verified that. I don't know. There's no way for me to verify it yet. The facts aren't out. However, just have to wait and see, guys. That's all there really is to it.
Have any proof that he's actually in the streets of
Clickbait.
Of
They try to get you to come click their stuff by saying something outrageous, and then if like she got shot in the face, so now the next thing you know, it's the same way that the propaganda machine works. The next thing you know, there's like some little streamer says, "Oh, they shot her in the face. They shot her in the face," and the next thing the news picks it up, and the next thing you know, that it's a narrative that's out there, and it could not even be true. It could be totally false, and we don't know yet. It hasn't been verified, but because we wanted to be first and not right, we wanted to be first to get the views and get the subscriptions and all that kind of stuff. Then we give up on the accuracy of the reporting. That comes second place.
That message was recorded, and we don't know if that was that. I don't think that was make it today. So we have to see.
Rosalie, I may have missed what you said.
I can't wait to see how the left reacts to this today. They're gonna freak
Vice President
out.
Delcy Rodriguez. Do we know where
They're
she
gonna
is?
freak out.
Well, she says that she's making a communication from Russia. From Russia, so we are right now trying to confirm that information. That some sources, extraofficial, told us that she has left the country also. As well, the national attorney Tarek William Saab, he might be also in Russia. So right now we are trying to confirm that information, but they have a high probability that they have left the country. If both left the country, that's a really important fact, because they only left Diosdado Cabello and Padrino Lopez, and they don't have so much power to control the situation.
Right. Look, I'm sorry to just to push on this. Who is saying, Rosalie, who is saying that Delcy Rodriguez, who is saying she is in Russia?
Some local sources. So they told
Local
us
sources.
that she's right now in Russia. She recorded a message, and she has only make a contact by telephone. So there has been high possibility that she left.
Trust that Trump is allowed to invade another country and abduct their leader legally. Depends. This is what I'm saying. It depends, because we need to find out how the relationship with Venezuela was working, and if he really is an illegitimately elected president, and do we have legal authority? Did Venezuela invite us in to do this? And you know, you have to find these things out. You can't just be like, oh, he's a war. He may very well be a war criminal. That may be the thing. That's the difference between me and a lot of people on the left or whoever, these indoctrinated people that immediately come to a conclusion. That's the end. That's the all. You know, he's a war criminal. That's it. I'd rather sit and say, you know what? He could be. He could be. We have to wait and see. We have to find out.
The facts. What I can say is that the UK was not involved in any way in this operation. And as you'd expect, we're focusing on British nationals in Venezuela and working very closely with our embassy. And so I will want to talk to the president, I will want to talk to allies, but at the moment, I think we need to establish the facts. I think President Trump is doing a press conference later, so hopefully more information will come out then.
What is clear, though, which the White House has said, is that America carried out strikes on Venezuela and captured their leader, Maduro. Some politicians in this country have already condemned that. Do you?
Well, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law. But I think at this stage, fast-moving situation, let's establish the facts and take it from there.
And just lastly, for people who might have family there or the small number of Brits in Venezuela, there are some there, it might be a small number, but of course people will be very concerned. What would their advice be?
Yeah, there's about 500 there in Venezuela, and we're working with the embassy to make sure that they are well looked after, safeguard, and get appropriate advice. So we're working at pace with the embassy on that. It is a small number, but it's an important number. It is about 500, and so that's what we're doing there.
Understood.
Keir Starmer speaking in the last few moments. These are said to be, well, they are live pictures from Caracas, and
this is the result. This is what I want to find out.
The military doing its best to
They
maintain that it is in.
They got pictures of Maduro and Cesar Chavez behind him there.
Interesting what Keir Starmer has been saying. Let's bring in our political correspondent Amanda Acas from Westminster. And well, Amanda, what struck me is that Keir Starmer didn't seem to know that this was taking place. We were not involved. I need to get more detail. Need to speak to Donald Trump. Need to establish the facts.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Need to establish the facts.
Starmer, wasn't it? And I
Wow.
think really trying to stress the lack of any UK involvement, or indeed it seems knowledge about what has happened, and really trying to put a bit of distance, I would say, between the UK and the US without actually voicing any kind of criticism of President Trump there.
Well, that's
He
true.
said he hadn't spoken to Donald Trump about it. He didn't. The UK wasn't involved in any way, that he would need to speak to the US and indeed other allies before really saying anything further, and even suggesting that we would get more information from the press conference from President Trump, which I think is due around 4 o'clock UK time later, without really suggesting that the UK would have any other way in between of finding out any more details. He was pressed on whether or not he condemned the strikes, as indeed other British politicians have been pushing him to do. So we've had reaction so far from, for example, Sir Ed Davey of the Liberal Democrats, who says that he should be condemning this illegal action. Unlawful attacks like this make us all less safe, and it gives a green light to the likes of Putin and Xi to attack other countries in impunity. Similar message from the Green Party leader, Zach Polanski. Sir Keir Starmer should be condemning this illegal strike and breach of international human rights law. Also, indeed, from his own party, John McDonnell, who, of course, was a Shadow Chancellor under Jeremy Corbyn from a very different wing of the party, but still also within Labour, saying that the UK, if it stands for the rule of law, then Sir Keir Starmer must condemn this. Now, the closest that Sir Keir Starmer would get to in that short clip was to say he always stands up for the importance of international law. So clearly he did want to get that position in, but given the delicate nature of the relationship between the UK and the US, he definitely didn't want to come out and say
Tricky, that's for sure.
like a criticism of
I don't know
President
what else
Trump.
to say. Just got to wait till the news
Okay,
breaks
Amanda,
and
thank
see the more
very
details.
much. Just a little bit of news.
Like I said, he may
being
very well be a
reported
war
by the
criminal.
Reuters news agency. and they are saying that Maduro and his wife have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. And this
2020.
following on, that's the Attorney General being quoted there
That was
by
2020.
Reuters. So we'll wait and see if there
It's
is
not new.
more on that, because it was Marco Rubio who said
not
that they
a
would
legitimate
be
leader.
facing charges.
He was a dictator.
There's more now, this time from the Associated Press news agency, saying the US Attorney General says deposed Venezuelan leader Maduro and wife Celia Flores will face charges in New York after an indictment in that city. So things moving very quickly, certainly as regards a bit more coming in now. Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Nicolas Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism, conspiracy, cocaine importation, conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, conspiracy to possess machine guns, and they will soon face
very intelligent conversation there.
American
Super intelligent. From
justice
totally
on American
unbiased
soil
source.
in American courts. That is
You gotta put your dog
from
mask on.
the Department of Justice and the Attorney General. So as I say, things moving
Trump is going to
very
jail.
quickly. They've gone into Venezuela.
Let's see. I don't know.
With special forces. They have taken Nicolas Maduro and his wife,
Double
and
force.
they have now been indicted in a court and will be charged. They have been charged, in effect, in the New York justice system. Let's get more now on the US side of all this, and we're joined by Charles Shapiro, who was a former US ambassador to Venezuela and who we have spoken to before. And well,
yeah, this
welcome.
is just
Thank
wild.
you very much.
Very
and
wild.
I just wonder what you make of these events.
Well, good morning, first of all. I mean, I've got a long list of questions, probably as long as yours. You know, what comes next is key. And was anything worked out in advance with anyone? Is the United States planning on taking out more people, or is just Maduro and Celia Flores and that's it? You know, and we need more information from the ground. You know, what happened? If there are any casualties, Venezuelan casualties, U.S. casualties, and I can keep going.
We heard from a journalist based in Venezuela in an interview just a few moments ago, saying that Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, she thought that she was in Russia. But look, that is not confirmed. But it is interesting in that you know, this is all so uncertain. Is the key thing, do you think, what the military decide to do next, and whether there is some kind of agreement with the Americans?
Well, in Venezuela, as in most third world countries, developing countries, the position of the military is key. So do they remain loyal? Are there splits within the military? And it's not just the military. Telling you more than I probably experienced in the past is it's actually some key divisions. You know, there's a military unit based in Caracas. Are they going to be loyal? There's an armored division and there's an airborne division, and you know, they're key to the loyalty towards the government or not. And you know, where do they stand? Those particular divisions and the generals who command those divisions. So, I mean, there's loads of questions, and you've got to be looking at this. Was there some sort of deal with this? Did the opposition, Edmundo Gonzalez, the guy who was elected president a year and a half ago now, and had the election stolen, is he on his way to Caracas? Maria Corina Machado, is she on her way to Caracas?
Liberal heads are exploding.
The leader of the opposition forces. And I have a question, and that is, to what extent this situation in Iran may have been a catalyst for this? In other words, do you need those ships to be heading towards the Persian Gulf and get them out of the Caribbean?
Yeah, well, that's very interesting because, of course, Donald Trump said, I think it was yesterday,
get me a refill.
that they were, what was it, locked and loaded and ready to take action if protesters were shot by the Iranian regime. So that is a very interesting point you make. But on Venezuela, you said it's interesting to see if the generals would remain loyal to the government, or to Maduro. But at the moment, there's no one to remain loyal to, I get, because Maduro is out of the country and is about to be charged, or has been charged, in a Southern District of New York court.
Well, actually there is. I mean, because that's what you were just referring to. I mean, there's a power structure around Maduro. And that's Diosdado Cabello, who is the strong man. He's minister of something or other. Don't even remember what, but that's not important. It's that he's the guy. He's the strong man within the Maduro government. You've got General Padrino, who's the Minister of Defense, and there's Delcy Rodriguez, who's the vice president, and under the Venezuelan Constitution should be the next in line. When you take out when a dictator, I'm speaking in general, anywhere in the world, is it just the dictator? Is it the dictator and the people around him who've kept him or her in power for so long? And so, what's next is, can you have a transition of these people, and loads of people loyal to Maduro? Are they going to stay? Are they going to stay strong and stay loyal? Or is their loyalty to something that was purchased by Maduro by, getting benefits from the state?
The guy you were just mentioning, Cabello, is the interior minister, and could be, as you say, key. I guess also there's the big question about what the opposition do and what people who support the opposition do, and whether they do come out and use this as an opportunity to sort of reestablish themselves on the streets.
Well, they'll certainly try. I mean, something like 80% of the population voted for the opposition in the elections of July 2024. Now that's votes, not avid supporters of the opposition. But the next question is, even for some of those people, if you say the United States is going to invade your country, do you want that? They're going to say no. And actually, there's a poll I saw yesterday that said only 25% of Venezuelans supported a U.S. invasion. So how do you sort this out? I mean, the question, whenever you have a unexpected change in government, is what comes next? And you and I can sit here and draw out scenarios: if this happens, if that happens, if the other happens. So, what comes next? Does the United States have plans? Is the United States Trump administration willing to put serious money into Venezuela? It's been 25 years of Chavismo. First Hugo Chavez, and then his acolyte, Nicolas Maduro, as president of the country. During, every person hired by the government of Venezuela during those 25 years, at least at some level, had to prove loyalty to Chavez and Maduro. From the military to school teachers and nurses in hospitals. The electrical system has collapsed. Oil production has collapsed. The economy's in shambles. Democratic institutions are all nominally democratic institutions. Supreme Court, the Electoral Council, the Justice Department are filled with people who are cronies of Maduro.
It's interesting because who knows what's going to happen now. I guess one thing we can say is that Donald Trump won't want to put forces into Venezuela, but because, well, not least because politically that would be very difficult for him, but also these things are not straight. We've seen it in the Middle East. These things are not straightforward. So to that extent, is it a high risk move by Donald Trump?
Well, his part
Oh
of the
man,
Republican
oh
Party,
man,
his
oh
support
man.
of the MAGA, the America's First people. It's an article of faith for them that nation building.
Yeah, we have to understand something here, guys. This guy, there's a million of them out there. This clown in here, the one that calling everybody else clowns and getting mad at everybody because they won't listen to him. I'm saying what I'm saying, and if you don't believe me, it's because you're stupid. It's because you're stupid if you don't believe me. Young and dumb. Not all people that are young are dumb, but this one here has been indoctrinated. I checked out a little bit about it. Indoctrinated, angry, and has that typical, I'm a teenager and I know everything, and you're an adult, so I'm smarter than you, and I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm going to challenge you to a debate. I don't want to have a conversation. I want to have a debate because I want you to know that I'm right. You will be put into submission by my incredible intellect. Give me a break, yo. Take a breath. Take a breath. Things change.
As it stands, I mean, they'll be wanting the lid to be.
Things change. You'll have to. You'll understand as you get older that things change and yada yada yada. This is a pretty big deal. What's going on in Venezuela? We're gonna basically the long thing is we're gonna have to wait and see what happens. We're gonna have to wait and see what happens. We can sit here and speculate, and everyone's running out to all these different sources to try to find out the latest news and this and that and whatever, but no one really knows. Everybody's speculating. Who we roasting? This guy. Give me a break, old man. Well, hang on, let me make it more accurate.
Give me a break, old man. Laughing my ass off. I gotta clean your shit up, and it's hard work. I can't slow down.
Is it hard to breathe in that stupid mask you wear, that dog mask? Is that hard to do? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness gracious. So a lot of this stuff is just going to be speculation. You know what I mean? It'll be, the news right now is running to find sources and running to find all kinds of people that can give them any kind of a headline or news or anything like that. Just keep the airwaves going. Keep the people involved. Keep them watching. Don't let them click away. Yes, it's a war crime, you idiot. It may very well be. It may very well be. But considering we don't have all the details yet, I reserve my opinion. I don't want to be first. I'm not interested in being first. I'm interested in being right to the best of my ability at the time. It's stupid to go out there and try to start speculating. We got people, like I'm just some dummy sitting in my office going live to give people my opinion about stuff. I don't have any inside information. But the thing is, you have to be aware. You have to know what you don't know, right? You have to know what you don't know. That's important, right? I know that I don't know all the details. I know that I really like Trump, but I know that I'm not going to be like, I really like Trump, so I'm gonna inject that into my opinion. I'm gonna inject that into my hypothesis or whatever, and I'm gonna use that to make it seem like it's okay if it's not. That's not how either side should react. The left is famous for it. Everyone who hates Trump is going to come out and say this is a war crime. I'm an expert all of a sudden, and it's a war crime, and blah 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 blah. But they don't know. I'm sitting here in my office. I'm just some blue collar guy sitting here in my office. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I can just look at the news reporting and then make an assumption by that. But like this guy's reporting that Maduro and his wife were indicted in New York, but that was a while ago, 2020, I believe. The guy stole an election. They just said that on the thing. We all know that too. So we have to wait and find out. We can't make assumptions now. If we make assumptions, you end up looking wrong later. White people gone cray-cray. Is the economy that bad? White people? I don't understand what's got to do with that.
Yeah, Charles Shapiro, thank you very much for coming on. In fact, you mentioned
it's interesting, man. Like I said, this is a tricky one. I'm not a guy that's going to go out there and just support Trump because it's Trump.
Thank you very much, Charles. Just another word on.
Bruh, it's a war crime. Trust me.
Bruh. Says that it is now advising against all travel to.
It may very be. It may very well be. Like I said, we don't know the details if it's a war crime or not. We have to find out what was going on in Venezuela when it happened. If he's really legitimately unelected president or whatever you want to call it that makes him a dictator. Things change. The laws of Venezuela matter. There's all kinds of things that we have to look at. Like I said, it's not like I'm sitting here going, no, it's not a war crime. Absolutely not. It very well could be a war crime. Absolutely. That's what maybe makes me a bit different.
Let's get details now on
That's what makes me a little bit different, I think.
They continue to emerge, those details, but tensions between the US and Venezuela have been rising for some time. So let's have a look at the background to what has happened in the last few hours. On September the 2nd, the US carried out its first strike against what President Trump called a drug-carrying vessel that was leaving Venezuela. That attack killed all 11 people on board that vessel. On October the 15th, President Trump said he was weighing up carrying out some sort of land operations.
That's a good point. F the UN. We should kick the UN out of the United States and leave.
The strike on these alleged
prolonged
drug-carrying
wars
was a few days ago on New Year's Eve, bringing the total number of those killed to at least 115.
Comment.
This guy will sometimes can't kill the end of time. He's mentally retarded. Trump's best sheep.
That's exactly what they want you to do. What a good puppet you are. What a good little puppet you are. That's just amazing. Good boy. Good boy. You did good.
And captured the president, Nicolas Maduro. I'm joined by our defense and security analyst, Professor Michael Clark. And
I'm just saying, I don't want to. I appreciate that. I like, share, and subscribe. I don't want to make any assumptions. I'm not going to do that. Oh, I left my. I'm not going to do that.
Do we think that the regime in some form is still in charge in Venezuela?
Mags, you seem like a sycophant. It's Mags. Mags with an S. Dang it. Get it right. I'm not.
Called for calm, and he obviously feels he's in a position to do that. We're still waiting to see what the Minister of Defense, if he's still Minister of Defense, and the Chief of the Army decide to do. We've seen what look like armored vehicles on the streets around the presidential palace, which indicates that
crazy
the
story.
Army is going to be completely passive about this. And the Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, if he's still Vice President,
that's important. They just said.
May not be by this evening, but if he's still Vice President, then
Venezuela military vehicles outside
the deciding what happens
presidential
next.
palace.
The supposition
would
should
seem
be
to be that was them involved.
The Maduro regime without Maduro is still there.
Right. I should just say, sorry to interrupt you. I made the same mistake, and Delcy Rodriguez is in fact a woman, and we think.
I'm not going to keep giving you airtime because I know that you're desperate for airtime and you want people to go to your channel. You really need more than 1 or 2 views a video.
In Russia,
but
I mean, well, I don't know.
Yeah, that's about it, I guess.
But yeah, the point you were making was
me. You're standing in the back of the room, jumping up and down, waving your arms. Look, me.
The idea that this has been a negotiated removal of Maduro, and that some of the closest associates have already made their decisions. In which case, there's more likely to be a vacuum at the top if that is the case. And that would be very interesting. I mean, just the way Bashar al-Assad about this.
I got rid of that guy.
Sort of immediately went to
Spammer.
Russia when he couldn't carry on any longer. The Russians do provide a haven for people in this sort of situation, and they sit in this suburb of Moscow and are not really heard of much again. So that, if that's true, that the former vice president has gone to Russia, then that would indicate that there's been a bigger hole in the middle of the Maduro regime than might have been first thought. So that obviously will add to the uncertainty as to what happens next. But it still comes back to what I think Charles Shapiro.
I was thinking about sending military equipment and possibly their own forces. That's what this is all about. We can't just go out and say that, though, because it would make tensions worse, right? I mean, there's a lot of things you can't just come out and tell the public, because then your enemy hears it too.
Decides to get involved in some way and take sides with some group or faction or parts of the opposition or all of the opposition, then that creates a different set of outcomes. So I think that's probably where we are at the moment. We're waiting to see what the army and the sort of the law enforcement people do over the coming hours. As I guess it's 4 hours behind now, so it's getting on for 9 o'clock in the morning in Venezuela. I mean, I guess we'd know by noon or early afternoon what the mood on the streets is going to be on this first day.
And if the the regime stays in power, the military generals under Maduro stay in power, and if there is an opposition or they try to get on the streets and there is a chaos, then that presumably would rest with the White House and President Trump, because I mean he didn't have to do this.
Yeah, it's what happens. I mean, it happened in 2011 when the United States and Britain and France effectively prevented a massacre in Benghazi, and that led to a campaign that got rid of Colonel Gaddafi in Libya. And the result of that became chaotic. We couldn't do much to prevent it. Same happened with the removal of Saddam Hussein in 2003. When you get rid of a dictator and
Press
some of the
conference
people
at 11
closest to
a.m.
the dictator, you open up a vacuum, because those dictators live with a vacuum below them. They make sure that there isn't a hierarchy of roles, because that creates opposition to them while in power. So they like to have a vacuum just below them in order to secure their own leadership. So when you get rid of the leadership, that vacuum then becomes the main problem. And yes, if the United States has removed Maduro and other people have as were fled, then that power vacuum needs to be filled very, very quickly. And the problem is that the opposition is very splintered. I mean, there is a Democratic Unity Round Table with the acronym MUD, M-U-D, which is rather appropriate, because it's just a mishmash of different interests, and they don't really agree on very much other than opposition to Maduro. There's a unitary platform, which is a bit more coherent, but even so, most of the opposition find themselves split on many, many policy issues, and they haven't been very strong, and they've been suppressed. So we'll have to see whether Edmundo Gonzalez, who's the front runner behind Machado was prevented from running. I mean, she's the real acknowledged opposition leader, working through Gonzalez, who was legally able to stand in the elections of 2024. So we'll see what they do, and if they're able to, as it were, fill that vacuum, which may be developing even as we speak.
Yeah, and let's just talk about the operation itself and what we know about the operation itself. It seems to be some sort of U.S. Special Forces operation. It seemed to be very successful. It seemed to go without a hit, and no suggestion of encountering any real substantial,
hear about
opposition militarily.
Any feeds from Venezuela
operation, surprising given that he would be well protected given the bounty on his head.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that the Venezuelan forces on paper are quite numerous. The army is about 100 and 110,000, and there's something.
Yeah, I think that's pretty remarkable to be able to go into a country and take
really
their president.
Who are the riot police and the special police and so
Scary.
on. So they had big forces, but everybody assumes that if those forces came up against United States forces, they would run away, as indeed I would if I was in their position. But nevertheless, Maduro was protected by elite groups who were very much beholden to him for their wealth and their ability to work with the drug traffickers in Venezuela. And that the cartel de la Sol that the talk about.
I will. I'm gathering my thoughts.
But it was an arrangement.
So I just got up at 5:30, found out this news was here, and came on. And I got some things to think about. Right now, I assume that it was a legal action because we must have been working with Venezuela and helped their operation. It's been said that it's a legal act. It is a legal action as far as the United States law is concerned, but we have to wait and see. Like I don't know all the details yet. Do you?
Maduro was staying, because he didn't stay many nights in any one place. But if there's some assault had taken place, there would have been a fair bit of resistance, and there would have been quite a lot of firing and quite a number of deaths among those people who have a real stake in keeping Maduro there if he'd chosen to stay and fight it out in some way. And the fact that it seems to have been a fairly textbook operation would indicate that some sort of deal was done beforehand. And maybe, I'm guessing now totally, but that American Special Forces might have moved into the area to secure it, to calm everything down, to make sure that there can't be
it's appropriate that I'm wearing mostly peaceful
mistaken
sweatshirt from my store.
Fighting that was not anticipated.
Mostly peaceful.
And that they've just secured an area and then said to Maduro and Sila Flores, his wife, all right, this is the moment, off you go. and they've taken them out, presumably in helicopters. Where they've taken them, whether they've taken them to the United States, which is interesting. If that's the case, we don't really know. But if that was the issue, then special forces did the thing that they need to do, which is secure an area for then a peaceful transfer of a leader out of the territory. It's the sort of thing they do with friendly leaders all the time. If somebody needs to be rescued from a territory, that's exactly what they do. They move in, secure an area, bring the helicopter in, take the friend out, and then take the friend back to the United States for good treatment if it's a friend of the United States. But that's not the case for Maduro.
No, and we understand from the Attorney General that they have already been indicted in a New York Southern District Court. But Michael, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate you coming on. Now, it was a rapid end to Nicolas Maduro's power in Venezuela. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, looks back now at his time in charge.
This was Nicolas Maduro and his wife just a few days ago, looking relaxed and smiling.
Un acuerdo de combate contra el narcotráfico, estamos listos.
He tells his interviewer he's open to closer cooperation with Donald Trump. He has now, it seems, been deposed and is on his way to an uncertain fate.
Not war, just peace, forever, forever, forever.
Whatever the future brings, Nicolas Maduro may be remembered most for pictures like these. A leader who danced as Venezuela's
He used to be a bus driver.
deeper.
That makes him like
American
special.
warships advanced on his country.
Not war, not war, not war. Just peace, just peace, just peace, forever, forever, forever. Peace forever.
Peace forever.
His brazen swagger was with him till the end. Here a few months ago, claiming he was bigger than Taylor Swift.
Soy más famoso que Taylor Swift en Estados Unidos ahorita.
But Nicolas Maduro will go down in history as the man who took a nation with enormous oil wealth and potential and left it ruined.
Yeah, for real.
Much of his life, though, he was in
the richest
shadow of
country in
this
that hemisphere.
socialist firebrand, Hugo Chavez, who upturned Venezuela with radical changes in the early 2000s, nationalizing its oil industry and reducing poverty. Before Chavez died, he made Maduro his successor. But Nicolas Maduro had none of his mentor's charisma or popularity. He was despised by many in Venezuela's elites as a poor substitute. To maintain power,
A lot of people don't remember
more
Hugo
and more
Chavez.
not on competence, but repression. And his policies were disastrous for the economy.
Yes, they were.
In elections in 2015, Maduro lost his majority in parliament, but he refused to stand down. In 2016, Maduro's fortunes took a turn for the worse, when the man who had become his nemesis was elected US president. Donald Trump imposed
This is not going to start World War III.
The Venezuelan economy went from bad to catastrophic. 7 million people would flee its collapse. In widespread protests in 2017, more than 100 people died. Opposition groups claim thousands were also killed by the secret police and in jails. But Nicolas Maduro appeared unmoved. Even after this, an attempt on his life with exploding drones in 2018 blamed on rogue elements inside the country. Behind the scenes, opponents were plotting, hoping for his downfall, led by this man, Juan Guaido, who declared Maduro illegitimate and himself acting president instead.
It's going to be, oh,
He was
man,
recognized-
I don't even know what to say about it. You know, it's,
The Maduro regime reacted furiously.
this is
running down
crazy.
protesters and shooting
It's
at
crazy.
streets. Guaido believed mistakenly he had enough support to remove Maduro from power. But a coup attempt that looked close to toppling Maduro ended in failure. The unpopular dictator clung on. His fortunes turned again, thanks to events halfway around the world, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. When the West stopped buying Russian oil, it turned to Venezuela and its vast reserves instead. Maduro was allowed back in out of the cold. That may have emboldened him to pull off one of the biggest election frauds in Latin American history. In
Yeah.
elections in 2024, the opposition is thought by most observers to have won a landslide, but Maduro again refused to give up power, declaring victory unconvincingly. Then in America, Donald Trump was re-elected. He branded Maduro a
Why is this crazy? The
narco-terrorist
history of the
and sent a
world is like
signal
this.
to
True.
America's Navy
True.
to threaten him. the latest of America's neighbors to face the belligerence of Donald
It's
Trump.
just very interesting.
It's just Venezuela.
You know,
It has started with
hey, I spelled
Panama,
this wrong. Take it down a
then
notch with the
Canada,
insulting
and
people in
with
the chat and
Greenland.
everybody else too.
It
The rule
seems
here is you can say whatever you want to
although he
me,
appears to be a pacifist,
but
at
leave the
least
people.
out
Don't
of
be
the
insulting
Western
people in the chat just
hemisphere,
because you
he has
can't
a very, let's
put
say,
your facts together in a
peculiar
coherent statement.
understanding
It's
of the
not
role of the
a
United States
doesn't
as
help
a
the
kind
situation.
of overlord of the area.
That's your
Trump's
little warning.
campaign
You
against
can say what
Maduro
you
has
want,
been
debate with who you
unrelenting.
want, argue with who
Massive
you want, but
naval
be
buildup
respectful.
aimed at first
I don't
Venezuela's
want people
narco
coming in here and
trafficking
then be
operations.
forced to want to
At
just
least
leave
30
because
small boats
somebody
destroyed
in the
allegedly
chat's
for
being a
drug
pain.
running, but with little evidence to prove the claims. Then oil tankers were seized, accused of breaking international sanctions. There was little doubt, though, the bigger prize was regime change. Donald Trump's rhetoric against the Maduro government showed no let-up.
We consider Venezuela to be not a very friendly country. They sent millions of people, really, and probably a number in excess of that.
You could say they invaded our country.
A lot of those people shouldn't be in our country, from jails, from gangs, from drug dealers, from all of the people that came into our country shouldn't have been in our country, causing a lot of problems and drugs.
The coming hours and days will be crucial for Venezuela wherever they lead. Maduro's years of rampant kleptocracy leave the country
They're allowed
economic inequality.
nothing but call me
Its
stupid.
resources
Yeah,
robbed,
well that
its
I don't want
institutions
that. I don't want people calling you
Whoever takes his
stupid. I don't
place
want people
faces an
calling
enormous
people
challenge, putting
stupid. As
Venezuela
far as
back on the road to
calling your
recovery.
sources BS,
Dominic
they're
Waghorn,
allowed to do
Sky
that.
News.
They probably are.
Dominic Waghorn there, giving us some of the background to what has led up to this strike in Venezuela. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying in the last hour or so that he anticipates no further action following this intervention from the United States.
Go post about
the
it.
U.S. has, though,
Make a
captured
video now and I'll see.
Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, and they are now going to face drug charges and weapon charges.
He's going to be in cuffs. He's going to be indicted. He's going to be perp walked. Kind of what a lot of people in our own government should have happen to them too, right?
In American courts.
I think so.
A very good afternoon. It is 1 o'clock.
Fuck that.
I'm
Gloves
Darren
are off.
McCaffrey. We
F
are
these
continuing
MAGA
our coverage
warmonger,
of this
pedo
breaking,
protecting bitches.
News this afternoon, a
Very
major
intelligent.
international story is the US President Donald Trump has confirmed that the United States has captured the Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro and flown him out of the country after a series of airstrikes. Sources inside the opposition have told Sky News they believe the capture
Not
was a
wrong.
negotiated exit. Meanwhile, the US Secretary or Attorney General Pam Bondi has said that Mr. Maduro
Don't do that.
and his wife have been charged with narco-terrorism and drugs charges, and with possessing machine guns to be used against the United States. Well, this is how Donald Trump confirmed the military action. He wrote on Truth Social, the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolás Maduro, who has...
We already
along
aren't
with
the
his
biggest
wife,
military.
captured
China's the
several
biggest military, I believe.
This operation
Or India.
in conjunction with U.S.
Biggest, not the best, most effective.
Well, video footage captured in the capital city shows a series of explosions. At least 7 were heard in the...
I like how it's stealing oil is going to be the narrative, guys. Stealing oil. They're stealing oil.
Said that this country would resist, and that some
Doesn't seem like they're stealing
have
oil.
been hit.
I'm not for this we're the world's police stuff either, though. I gotta wait to see what
Could be heard across the city with
Rand Paul says about it.
rising
Be
into the
interesting.
sky. The
Or
Venezuelan government's
the
declared
Kentucky
state of
branch of the government there.
Well, strikes were heard in the capital, Caracas, as well as the states of Miranda, Aguaga, and Liguera. Details of the events overnight in Caracas are scarce, but videos on social media are circulating.
Call whatever you want, BS.
Taking place in the port area.
It's a free country. I try to operate this thing like with the First Amendment. You know what I mean? As best I can, but with the knowledge this is a online chat room, so we have to try to be respectful to each other.
We felt planes flying and explosions, several explosions, at least 8 or 10. And now I went out to look around, and now all you see is smoke.
Well, pictures here appear to show Chinook helicopters, often used by the military to carry special
I don't put
forces.
all my
The only
trust in
country
any
anywhere
in
in
any
that region
man,
that uses Chinooks is the United States, meaning they are
in
most
any
likely to be
leader.
American military
Trump
aircraft
is not at the
seen
top of
over
the flagpole. My loyalty lies with
Well,
the
what appears
country,
to be a
where it
Venezuelan
should for
military
everybody,
seen here
because
patrolling
that means that
near the
you
presidential palace
lie with
in
other
Caracas
Americans
in
because we're all
taps. You can
Americans.
see
Let's
their
try to remember
sirens,
that.
and explosions can also be heard in the background amid reports that people are fleeing the capital. And we're also starting to see images showing evidence of social unrest in Caracas. These pictures do show armed men confronting cars and firing gunshots. Venezuela's interior minister has been seen wearing protective gear and surrounded by armed men too, seeking to reassure the people there.
I call on our people to remain calm, trust in our leadership, trust in the political and military high command to handle the situation we are facing. Remain calm, do not give in to despair, do not make things easier for the invading enemy, the terrorist enemy that cowardly attacked us. Do not make things easier for them. This is not the first struggle. It is not the first battle that some have waged against this people, believing that they will defeat us.
Well, this is the live pictures.
That's the
emerging
question, though.
from,
That so they kidnapped,
Caracas.
not
And as you can
captured
see,
the world
people
leader of a
have
sovereign
taken
nation
to the streets just
unprovoked.
after 9
That's not
a.m.
really true
There,
either.
a reasonably small crowd has gathered in the Venezuelan capital, but they do seem pretty jubilant at this news. They've been waving flags, Venezuelan flags, this morning, and so far it all looks to be relatively peaceful. As I say, not a large crowd by any estimation, but it is significant that people are on the streets, that they feel able to do so. There
That's
are
important.
appear to be
This is
some
important. How the
military police
Venezuelan
personnel
people
there to the
react.
left of your screen, but it does appear that people are, at the moment at least, to a small degree, welcoming what has happened overnight, and that things do remain relatively peaceful. And this all comes, of course, as we heard from Pam Bondi, who is the U.S. Attorney General, saying that Maduro and his wife had been indicted in the Southern District of New York, facing narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation, and possession of machine guns. These people that we're seeing are Maduro supporters who are, as I say, gathered peacefully in Caracas. There is, as I say, little sign, effectively, that there are any use of violence so far or anything like that. It does seem pretty peaceful, but it is a pretty small crowd, as I say, by all.
Pretty early there, people were probably scared to come out. They don't know. They couldn't come out in this way before. That's an interesting sign that the people are coming out. I want to see how the Venezuelan people react.
What's going to happen to President Maduro? It says we would soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. And on behalf of the entire U.S.
Excuse me,
I would like to thank President Trump for having the courage to demand accountability on behalf of the American people. And a huge thank you to a brave military who conducted the incredible and highly successful mission to capture these two alleged international narco.
Try to keep it respectful in the chat, please.
From our U.S. correspondent David Blevins, who is in Washington, D.C.
We heard about this will probably tell us about the press conference.
Remains so fluid. Quite frankly, it's difficult to keep track of it. We've got
Yeah.
the president posting from Mar-a-Lago in Florida that there has been this large-scale strike, and also surprising many people by announcing that the U.S. has captured, to use his word, the Venezuelan president.
Emotions make people easy to
his wife
control.
out of the country. At the same time, we're hearing from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio that President Maduro of Venezuela has been indicted for pushing drugs into the United States, he says, and that he will face justice on U.S. soil. At the same time, we're also hearing from the Venezuelan government that they don't know where Maduro is, that they're seeking proof of life. They've declared a national emergency. We've heard from the vice president, from the defense minister, from the interior minister. So if the ultimate goal was regime change, well, the leader appears to have been removed either of his own free will or by U.S. forces. But certainly the regime very much remains still in place in Venezuela.
Yes, I
Yes,
saw
American force in Washington. Well, let's take you through what we know
the
about
ships, but the
Venezuela.
story behind that is that they were breaking
He was last seen on
sanctions,
government TV here on
and
New
it
Year's
was
Eve
illegal.
in the country's
They
capital.
one of them even actually painted a quick Russian flag on the side
Sunday that the US
to try
military
to appear
announced
as a
strikes
different
against 5 alleged
different
drug
country,
smuggling
so they wouldn't
rings,
be
and Maduro
taken
said
over.
he was open to talks with the United States about tackling drug trafficking.
The US government knows, because we've told many of their spokespeople, that if they want to seriously discuss an agreement to combat drug trafficking, we're ready. If they want oil, Venezuela is ready for US investment, like with Chevron. Whenever they want it, wherever they want it, and however they want it.
Just trying to hold on to power. I guess I associate. I'm a registered Republican, but I was an independent for many years. I registered as a Republican because I was considering running for a local office, so I had to be a Republican to do so. And then, so I'm not necessarily a Republican supporter. I think the government in general is a uniparty, and they don't care about us. They don't care about us at all.
That you should also have a personal
general.
emergency plan, including practical steps for leaving the country or staying safe during a crisis. That does not depend on support from the UK government. So the Foreign Office essentially saying that if
International law isn't up for debate, I suppose, but we need to find out more details. It's like these people are going to say, it's all about oil. It's all about oil. What are you basing that on?
International Affairs Editor,
Just because it's a
Dominic
played out
Wyckoff, who
narrative
is
that
with
we've
me in
used
the
for many
studio.
years?
Dominic, very good afternoon to you. Just first of all, let's step back a little bit. What's your take on what rather extraordinarily has happened in the last 12 hours or so?
I mean, it is extraordinary. I think we're still letting the dust settle. And obviously, I think what we hear from Donald Trump later this afternoon will be key to our further understanding of what has happened. But on the face of it, this looks like a completely unprecedented move. America has been in the business of regime change for a long time. It's always found ways of getting rid of leaders it doesn't like, but it's always tried to do so either within the bounds of international law or using kind of plausible deniability. So either sort of going through contortions at the Security Council that led to the invasion of Iraq and the removal of Saddam Hussein, or using some more underhand methods like the CIA removing Mossadegh in Iran in the 50s. And the reason it's gone to those lengths, of course, is because to just go in and remove a leader you don't like with your own armed forces sets a pretty worrying precedent. And it breaks the principles of international law.
For a military action. He doesn't need a
I
congressional
can't think of any
approval.
country really that's literally
Let's all
used
understand
armed
that there's
forces
some lawyers and
and
stuff that looked at this first. It's not like he was just like, you know what, I'm emotional right now. Let's get him. Who cares about laws and stuff? This stuff has all been figured out before this happened. Like, they didn't just jump into this.
The leader. So this is setting a new precedent. And I think for America's allies and for neighbors of Venezuela, they privately, I think, will be not, no one's going to cry and weep at the loss of Nicolas Maduro. He was a very bad leader who did enormous damage to his country. But the precedent this is set by breaking those rules or looking like it's done so, I think
Just
will
keep
cause
it.
a lot of concern.
I mean, it's hard to keep. I can't keep track of the whole chat. I don't have my peeps in here to monitor it for me right now. But yeah, be respectful. Be a little bit respectful.
What's this mean for others?
Let's have conversation, not arguing and fighting.
What's going to happen to you? But also, does it allow Xi Jinping in China to think, well, I can now go and send my special forces into Taiwan and arrest the president there? It raises all these questions.
I want to talk about that in a second, John, but I suppose my other big question then is, what do you think of these reports that it may well then have been negotiated? If that is true, that might negate a little bit of that. What do you make? Do you think it's credible that he may well have negotiated this exit?
Yeah, I think,
and
as you say,
it's undoubtable that he went and negotiated this exit before.
Exactly. And I think, that's going to be crucial. And I think the way the American government presents what's happened is going to be vital, isn't it? And is it going to present this as kind of, as you say, kind of the reports we have from Stewart's contacts in Venezuela and others is that this was a deal done. And this was always the plan, to put pressure on Venezuela. We had a former Trump foreign policy advisor from the first term in office talking to me on the World Foreign News program at the beginning of at the end of last year, saying the plan is to put pressure militarily on the Venezuelans to encourage those sort of lower ranking members of the security establishment to then get rid of Maduro. That may have been what happened. That would have followed that script. So you get Venezuelans at a high level to hand him over to the Americans. And then the Americans can say, well, they facilitated an internal change of power. But, you know, I'm not sure that's going to really convince many people.
I think this has a lot to do with getting China out, too.
Happened without that military buildup. This was initiated by Donald Trump and Marco Rubio, it seems, taking the lead in the administration, and they have pushed this through to an end that they had planned. And I think, therefore, for allies, it will be setting a worrying precedent. As you say, it's going to be a lot of it's going to be about the presentation. How are we going to hear Donald Trump?
I just don't.
He's used that word.
I just don't like your title with an installation of distraction from the Epstein files, that Trump is on files when he's the one who released me.
Dominic, is crucial.
All right, that's
not just
wow.
You know, President Maduro, but indeed to Venezuela itself. I mean,
Don't drink in the morning, guys.
We have seen
don't drink in the morning.
And different pictures of people on the streets in Caracas. Some seem to be waving flags, and pretty ecstatic about stuff. And then we've seen also some, we believe, and these pictures relate to Maduro supporters who've gathered. Thus far, all pretty peaceful. But as I say, this is now a crucial time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to, the coming hours
yes.
and days are going to be
yes, it is.
crucial, as they always are, once you remove a leader in any revolution or any coup d'etat or any sort of change of government that's not expected. What happens next is crucial. It sets the country on a certain path. We've heard from American diplomats, former ambassador James Story, at the end of last year, he said, look, the easy bit will be getting rid of Maduro. It's what happens next that's actually going to be a lot harder. If you look at the comparisons with countries like Iraq, for instance, there isn't that kind of, it's more socially cohesive, Venezuela, than countries like Iraq, that were sort of made up of a kaleidoscope of ethnic groupings, has a kind of civic society badly damaged by years of misgovernment and economic.
People are still trying to push the Epstein file stuff.
And Maduro still has
Play it
a
out.
civic society. There are reasons to think it could go reasonably or better than other countries that have seen leaders removed in unexpected circumstances. But it's also a country where the opposition has been dismantled as much as it can be by Maduro. There are militias, there are narco militias there. And if you have a vacuum that isn't filled by some kind of meaningful government that can replace Maduro fairly quickly,
it's going to be tricky. How do we do that? We take him out of there, Maduro out of there, and then they need to have another government, right? So what role do we play? I don't want any role. But if we cause all kind of uncertainty there and chaos by this action, then we should be a bit responsible. Offer some kind of security. I don't know what you do in this situation. This is not really ever happened before, really like this. Gaddafi, I believe. But
first, I do want to bring in Elliot Abrams, who is a former special representative for Venezuela in President Trump's first term. Elliot, a very good afternoon to you. I suppose my first question is the one that I put to Dominic a little while ago. What's your assessment of this rather incredible last 12 hours?
I think that after the buildup in the Caribbean and considering his rhetoric, it was impossible for Trump just to walk away from this. There was going to be a winner. It was going to be Trump or it was going to be Maduro, who would win by surviving. There was an effort to negotiate him out, as there was in 1988 with Noriega in Panama. Noriega refused.
Yeah. Anyone out there actually know anyone in Venezuela?
Going to end up like Noriega in an
Anyone out there know anyone in Venezuela? I'd be interested to know
I do agree that
what their reactions to this is.
What happens to the rest
That's
of the regime.
that's important.
It's hard to believe that the president will think it's okay for another 15 indicted drug traffickers to remain in power and simply take over from Maduro. Whether any of that has been planned, I think we'll know a little bit more in a couple of hours when the president speaks. What will the Venezuelan army do now with Maduro gone? Will it stay together? Who handed Maduro over? I think these are all very interesting questions.
And what about
Yeah, that's the stuff we need to know. Who handed Maduro over?
From the president himself and others that has led to this? I mean, President Trump's got a lot on his plate, domestically as well as internationally.
This is
why this focus, particularly rather acutely in the last 6 months, on Venezuela. What are they hoping to achieve here?
Well, I think this is a kind of perfect storm for the president.
Mm.
Narcotics trafficking, which is a big issue for him. Number one, migration, and the sense that if Maduro stayed in power, 1 or 2 or 3 million more Venezuelans would leave. Then the sense of dominance in the Western Hemisphere. The recent national security strategy talked a lot about that. And there's one place really now where you have Russia, China, Iran, Cuba, all active, and that's Venezuela. So I think it all comes together for Trump in a way for him to show a kind of dominant position in the Western Hemisphere.
And Ellie, this is not obviously without risks, isn't it? Because as you say, we don't quite know, no one really knows what is going to happen in Venezuela in the hours, days, weeks ahead. This could get very, very difficult indeed if it's not handled well. And when I say handled well, I mean that from the point of view that the United States has now intervened. In some ways, it is now partly responsible for what happens next.
I think that's right. But from Trump's point of view, this is a bit like the bombing.
Yeah,
the
that's a
Iranian
fear, but
site.
I don't think that's true.
It's over when you
Another
announce
Iraq
it, and
war,
there are no
Iraq
more
war
US
being
forces
started.
in Venezuela. So
It's
he's
a
not
much different
involved
situation.
in the direct sense anymore.
It's in our
I'm,
hemisphere, not on
fairly
the other side of the
optimistic
world.
about what will now happen in Venezuela. We're not in the Middle East here. We have a homogeneous society. It has a history of about 2 generations of democracy. There is an elected president, Edmundo Gonzalez, who won in a landslide last year. So it's reasonable to hope that there can be a change of government now. And I hope and assume that that's precisely what the CIA is doing now. It's saying to people, for example, in the army, Maduro is gone. A couple of others will have to go, but you don't have to go if now you will deal with the new government.
And just very finally on all of this, as someone who knows the
Venezuela
international
can
sphere
be
very
the most
well
successful
indeed,
country down there,
what
and
will others around the world
it's just
think
the
about
dictators
this
have taken it to a
action?
place where
What will
the people lose
people
and
in
the
the Kremlin, in
people in
Beijing,
power win.
the Iranian regime, you know, this could be quite a pivotal moment, couldn't it, for the Trump administration's foreign policy?
Well, it certainly should scare the Iranians. His threats about hitting Iran again, if they try to rebuild their programs, will be taken more seriously now. I think it's also very
You might find out later Maduro even knew about this. Who knows?
Nicaragua.
Oh, there, Maduro wanted out. He
I
saw
think
the
for
writing on the
For
wall.
the Russians, for the Chinese, for others, it's a reminder that the United States has very capable
This is
military and that Trump
remarkable.
is willing to use it. I don't think that fundamentally, though, it changes the kind of balance of power internationally.
Okay, Elliot, we really appreciate your time, your insight, and your analysis here on Sky this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed.
Russia and China can't
just
do
to say,
anything.
We've got a couple of news lines coming in from Ursula von der Leyen, of course, the EU Commission president, saying that the European Union is following the situation in Venezuela closely, also saying that the EU stand by the people of Venezuela and support peaceful and a democratic transition. And that we're making sure that EU citizens in the country can count on our full support. So again, a little bit of a holding statement there from the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, saying that they are keeping across effectively events in Caracas. Well, let's go to the Venezuelan capital now and speak to Rosalie Hernandez, who joins us live. Rosalie, thank you very much indeed for joining us. First of all, what is the situation like on the ground there in the capital? We've seen pictures of people gathering. Do we know who they are?
I want to know what the Venezuelan people think, how they react to this.
Yeah,
People.
good afternoon. First of all, well, there are Chavistas. There are people that there are people who works for the Chavista party. So there's not the population who has go out to the streets and celebrate or make some riot or something. There are just officialist people who are trying to support what left of the Nicolas Maduro communications, you know?
Yes, and I think we're seeing pictures of some of those people you're talking about on screen now. Do we know who is in charge?
Right now, there is information. The extraofficially, we know that Delcy Rodriguez has left the country. She might be right now in Russia. So it left the power or all the control in the Diosdado Cabello hands. And Padrino Lopez, maybe he's in Venezuela also, but he recorded a message that we don't know for sure if he's in Venezuela or not. But right now,
probably
without
getting
Nicolas Maduro and the vice president, Delcy
processed.
Rodriguez, the
I wonder
control
if
might be in
is it a no
Diosdado
bail state?
Cabello hands. He's the national, the minister who rules all the security and the control of the population. So the control is in her hands.
So is it your sense that while Maduro is clearly not there and seems to be on his way to New York, that the government itself
I
has
wonder
not
if
fallen, that there
Maduro
is
or
essentially still a government of some sort in place,
what's his name?
that the wider
The new
regime
mayor
still exists?
of New York will have
Well,
an
the regime
say.
exists because it's not only Nicolas Maduro. Nicolas Maduro, I think that he was the weakest
better off
pillar of the regime
prosecuting him in Florida.
of that is ruling in Venezuela. We have a very complex situation
That's
in
a
here.
silly.
So it is not only Nicolas Maduro.
That's a
We
silly
have
statement there.
to take
Mags, why would anyone with
control
an
of
ounce of
all the
decency want to
institutions.
identify as a
The
Republican?
National Assembly, all
That's
the
silliness.
ministers. So
I
Nicolas
don't know.
Maduro is
Like I
not
said, I don't
only
defend the
only
Republicans.
person
I'm
who has
not.
to
I'm not
left
a Republican
to
fanboy. I'm not
gain
interested
a
in any of
new
that
path
stuff.
in Venezuelan freedom. We have to take control of the military.
But
what
they're right more
Maduro
often than the
says us,
Democrats are. It's
by
all one
speaking
big
to all
party.
the Venezuelans and all the political leaders who has to right now to take control of all the institutions, not only the figure of the presidency that was ruled by Nicolas Maduro. We have Diosdado Cabello. He is a very important person in
Yes,
the control
we saw the oil
of the
tankers that
regime.
America
He
seized, the ones
controls
that were
all
illegally
the
transporting oil under breaking
forces,
sanctions. Yes,
all the national
yes, we saw
forces.
that.
So we
But
have
the
Delcy
narrative for the
Rodriguez.
left
He
is
is
just it
the
ends with he
president
took oil
of the
tankers.
National
They don't say
Assembly. He
why.
has a great
They don't get into
power
any of those
in
details. It's
Venezuela,
all just he
and
took them.
he's
He's a
one of
tyrant.
the big negotiators in all the negotiations tables, you know. And there is also the national attorney, Tarek William Saab, and he has also a great power in the nation. So it's not only Nicolas Maduro. There is a game. The right now Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez has to play to fully recover the freedom in Venezuela.
I was just going to pick up on that in regards to the opposition. As you say, Maria Corina Machado obviously won the Nobel Peace Prize not that long ago. But what is the role of the opposition? I mean, there's opposition clearly inside Venezuela, but some of the leaders are here in Europe, aren't they?
Yeah, well, that situation is.
Is that ruder than discrediting me by saying I have TDS your way? Still trying to understand what civil means here.
To take the prize, and
sometimes you gotta have a thicker skin, buddy. Sometimes you just gotta deal with it. I ask that no one insults everybody. We don't have that, you know. But I can't monitor the chat that closely to know every time. I'm busy doing other stuff. But sometimes you gotta have a thicker skin and not whine about someone calling you a name in a chat. See, like me, people call me names all the time. Heck, I'll get death threats. But I'm not gonna.
To do in here because they live in Venezuela. The regime of Nicolas.
I'm not gonna get all upset about it. And
have a great control.
People are going to say stuff, you know, it is what it is. If you're a person that believes a whole political party or a whole group of people are rapists, pedophile supporters, and blah, 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 you know, you got to expect a little pushback.
Circle to do something, to make a statement or to say something.
Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Check out my store. Shop.MagAmericans.com. Link in the description.
Well, it would be able to return to Venezuela to see how is going to be things right now. For other hands, we cannot count on new elections to rule another new presidential election, because we need to see how all the institutions are going to be recovered, and to be sure that the regime of Nicolas Maduro has no power to make something to destroy all this work that has been made by the United States in common with Maria Corina Machado.
Yeah, it's a very, very complex situation indeed. Rosalie, they're live for us in Caracas. Thank you very much indeed, and we'll be back with you throughout the afternoon here on Sky News. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We'll back here in the UK. We've heard from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. He's responded to the operation in Venezuela, saying that the UK had no involvement in the US strike in Caracas.
Have you spoken to Donald Trump about what's happened in Venezuela?
No, I haven't, and it's obviously a fast-moving situation. And we need to establish all the facts. What I can say is that the UK was not involved in any way in this operation. And as you'd expect, we're focusing on British nationals in Venezuela and working very closely with our embassy. And so I will want to talk to the president, I will want to talk to allies, but at the moment, I think we need to establish the facts. I think President Trump is doing a press conference later, so hopefully more information will come out then.
What is clear, though, which the White House has said, is that America carried out strikes on
We
Venezuela.
haven't gotten
and
congressional
captured
approval since
their
World War
leader,
II.
Maduro. Some politicians in this country have already condemned that.
He
The
can
US
do a military action.
Well, I
I
want
believe
to
he has 30 days.
I want
You
to
can
speak to
do it for
President
30
Trump
days
and
until he has to
speak
get
to
congressional
allies.
approval at that point to
As I
declare
say, I can be
war.
absolutely clear that we were not involved in that.
The sooner
And
Europe
as
is
you
separated from
know,
the U.S., the better. Criminal
I
for president,
always
alcoholic for
say and
defense
believe we
minister.
should
We have
always uphold
a
international
secretary
law.
of war, not a
But I think
defense
at this
minister.
stage, fast-moving situation,
And you
let's
can call him a
establish the
criminal all you
facts,
want. He's the
make
greatest
it
president
public.
of my
Who might be
lifetime.
in Venezuela. There are some there. It might be a small number, but of course, people will be very concerned. What would their advice be?
Yeah, there's about 500 there in Venezuela, and we're working with the embassy to make sure that they are well looked after,
Not war.
safeguarded, and get appropriate advice.
Not
So
war.
We're working at pace with the embassy.
People,
on that.
there's
It
a
is
lot
small
of,
number,
of
but it's
people out
important
there that
number.
have been
It's
ignorant to
about
the
500,
facts. This
so
is
that's
not
good.
war. It's a military action, which he is
Okay, let's
perfectly,
bring in our
he
political
is allowed to
correspondent,
do.
MagAmericans, who's live for us in Westminster. A bit of a holding statement there from the Prime Minister, Amanda, but we've had lots of reaction from elsewhere too.
Yes, we certainly have. I think the Prime Minister being characteristically but also diplomatically cautious in his response to all this. On the one hand, not wanting to directly criticise the White House and President
Maduro
Trump, but
did
at the same time
abuse those
also
people
wanting
for
to really
years.
stress the UK was absolutely not involved. He stressed that he hasn't spoken to President Trump about this and insisted that he doesn't really have any details
That's
about
cool.
what happened.
No
He said he
doxing.
needs
We don't
the basic
dox.
facts to be
We got
established
doxed.
before he could really
So
go
as
on
long as you're not
and
doxing.
say anything more. And even what I thought was rather extraordinary, saying, well, we'll probably have to wait
I didn't like
until
getting
that White House
doxed.
press conference
Our
later
kids
on
were
to really
doxed.
know much more,
I
which
was
is an
doxed.
interesting
My wife was
take on
doxed.
the so-called special
Our kids were
relationship given
doxed.
the UK and the US
That,
meant to
that
be
gets crazy.
closest
Death
military
threats, etc.
allies, if that's how the UK government is getting their information. But certainly I think it's useful for him not to
That's a
have
ridiculous statement.
issue a
Conservatives
full
don't know what a
because he
goddamn
is under
fact
some
is.
pressure to come out and condemn
Quit
and to
painting whole
criticise
groups
the White
as
House's
whatever you
actions.
want. Just quit
A
painting
number
whole
of his
groups
political
as something.
opponents have come out
Doesn't
calling
help
for him to do
anybody.
so. Sir Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, has tweeted today saying Keir Starmer should condemn Trump's illegal action in Venezuela. Maduro is a brutal and illegitimate dictator, but unlawful attacks like this make us all less safe. Trump is giving a green light to the likes of Putin and Xi to attack other countries with impunity. Now, there's other kind of similar comments made by the Green Party leader, Zach Polanski as well, who's talking about the fact this is an illegal strike, a breach of international human rights law, and even John McDonnell, who, of course, is on a very different wing of the party than the Prime Minister, a close ally, of course, of Jeremy Corbyn, who's now no longer in Labour.
We
He's
worship
come out saying
Jesus.
that if the UK
We don't
government stands
worship
for the rule of law, then Sir
guns.
Keir Starmer must condemn this. Now, Sir Keir Starmer, as we heard there in that interview, clearly not willing to say that he condemned the strikes on Venezuela. Venezuela, but he did say in general terms that he absolutely stands for the importance of upholding the international rule of law. He's the country's most famous human rights barrister. Of course, he had to say something like that in general terms, and you could read that as a kind of tacit criticism.
A lot of haters out there.
The US, but
a lot of haters out there. People are going to freak out.
With President Trump.
All right.
If he can avoid it, of course, he
We'll
spent
stop
most of this year working very
chat a bit here. So we attacked Venezuela. We went in there and took their leader out. Flew him out of the country. He's going to face trial on American soil. I'm going to wait and see what happens. I'll be back later today for the press conference at 11. So make sure you check back. All you haters, come back. You haters out there, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. You need to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Hit that bell. Make sure you do that so you don't miss us later in the day.
closely to build.
Okay, Amanda, live for us there in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed. And just to remind you, we are expecting to hear from the US President Donald Trump. He's going to hold a press conference at around 4 p.m.
Nice.
But it is just after 1:30 here in the UK. Let's just remind you of that breaking news. A developing story indeed, that is that US President Donald Trump has confirmed that the United States has captured the
I'm going to hang out here for a little bit longer.
and flown him out of
But
the country.
I don't expect there's going to be any new news that's going to come out in the next few minutes. It's all recycled. It's all going to be going to pundits for their opinions
Meanwhile, the US
on it. And I'm not interested in anyone's opinion just yet.
With narco-terrorism.
I'd like to wait and see what happens. Usually right now it's who's first, not who's right.
The United States. Well, this is how Donald Trump confirmed the military action on Truth Social this morning. He said that the United States of America successfully carried out a strike, a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement.
Oh, that's certainly up for debate. Certainly up for debate.
Video footage captured in the capital city shows a series of explosions. At least 7 were heard in the early hours of the morning. In the last half an hour, Venezuela's defense minister has said his country would resist and that some.
It's an interesting opinion, interesting take.
Well, sirens could be heard across the city with plumes of smoke rising into the sky. The Venezuelan government has declared a state of emergency.
Yeah, the right thinks that the left is dumb, and the left thinks the right is evil. That's a big difference.
Details of the events overnight in Caracas are scarce, but videos on social media are circulating showing explosions taking place.
That's the important part, though. You got to hold, wait, and find out exactly what happened. This is all recycled stuff here now at this point.
Approximately an hour and a half ago.
I've seen this clip a couple times today. We have to wait and see what happens. We can't just go out there and be like, oh, this is crazy. He's a war criminal, outrageous, yada, yada, yada. Anyone is welcome to come on the mic on my show and debate my intelligence with me.
Special forces. In fact, the only country anywhere in the region that uses Chinooks is the United States, meaning that they are most likely to be American military aircraft seen over the Venezuelan capital.
This is a super expensive distraction from the Epstein files. Yeah, I'm not sure that's what this is for, guys. It's not an oil thing, and it's not a, I mean, we have oil. It's not an oil thing. It's not a,
and we're starting to see a little bit of unrest maybe in Caracas as well. These pictures do show some
Epstein file thing. Yes, people are saying we're at war. What war? All I see is a lucky Venezuelan being immigrated to America. The left used to love that. I wonder if he used the app. I wonder if he used the app to come in. Oh wait, they switched that up to go the other direction.
Remain calm. Do not give in to despair. Do not make.
Again, having to tell people how smart you are shows you're not as intelligent as you think you are. Yes, that's generally true. Generally true. That's why I'm big on. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just another American citizen. I have a small platform that I like to push some of this stuff out on so people are aware.
Caracas this morning. It's just after 9:30 there at local time. We
Looks
believe
like there's
these
some
are
supporters
either government
of
officials
Maduro.
or supporters of
A
Nicolas
lot of soldiers
Maduro.
there.
They've gathered in the downtown part of the city. Interestingly, it's not necessarily a big crowd, but it all does seem at the moment relatively peaceful. And they know that President Maduro's no longer in, of course.
We have
Venezuela.
oil.
Instead,
We have
him and
plenty
his
of
wife are
oil.
going to face a criminal trial, it seems,
Gas
in the
prices are
United
going
States.
down.
According to the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bundy, this is what she tweeted.
So I don't see this as an oil grab.
They would soon face
Who knows?
the wrath of
You
American
might see.
justice on
You might
American
see.
soil
I don't know.
in American courts. On behalf of the entire
It seems like a lot of stuff goes with, goes as so does the oil, so to speak.
to demand accountability on behalf of the American people.
It's not an oil thing, says the effing idiot.
The incredible and highly successful mission.
I don't think it's necessarily about the drugs either. I think it's more about control of our own hemisphere, Monroe Doctrine type stuff.
All this now. Let's bring in Brian Finucane. He's a senior advisor at the International Crisis Group and a former U.S.
So these are the people that they're all out there scrambling to get on and
good afternoon to you. How unprecedented
give their
do you
opinions.
view this action that's been taken in the last 12 hours or so?
Well, it's remarkable. It appears to be a flagrant violation of the UN Charter, the prohibition on the use of force. But unfortunately, there is some precedent in past U.S. military interventions. Today is, of course, the 36th anniversary of the capture of Manuel Noriega in 1989 in Operation Just Cause, the invasion of Panama. And that is a precedent that this administration has repeatedly cited. That doesn't render these actions any more lawful, however.
There are reports, indeed, we have here at Sky News that this may be, or somewhat at least seen this, maybe as part of a negotiated exit. What do you make of that suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we need to see those facts. It appears if there is,
yes, we need to see the facts. Right. There's more facts to find out.
Intervened here. It appears to have conducted airstrikes on Venezuela.
For all we know,
if
he had an agreement to go with the soldiers, but he wanted to look like we came in there and took them. Who knows? We don't know. I'm not going to speculate. There's so many different ways this could go.
Now, we've heard from the U.S. Attorney
It's important that we wait for the facts.
It does seem that they probably are going to be taken to the United States. Seems to be New York.
America has never won a war.
And we've got a list of some of the charges.
I think we're like
seems around drug smoking,
9-1 or something.
And possession of machine guns. What do you make of the legal case, if you like, from what we've seen publicly thus far from the Attorney General about the trial that Maduro and his wife may well face in the United States?
Well, they've secured an indictment against Maduro, but they haven't had a trial yet. And so these remain accusations. These have not been established beyond a reasonable doubt in the courts.
Sometimes I wonder if I shouldn't take on some of these morons like this guy here who wants me to get him some viewers, because it would be destruction. It would be so one-sided. It would be ridiculous. Kids out here know everything.
Indeed, but just on what, as you say, looks like will end up as a trial, and the case, you could argue the United States has been, the US president has been making lots of allegations against the Venezuelan president for months and months now. Indeed, he did it in his first term too.
Trump said no new wars.
Under US law,
this isn't a war yet.
Just give us a sense, essentially.
I don't think it's going to be that.
What that trial's likely to be like, and those charges that he's going to face.
Well, per the statements of Pam Bondi this morning, the U.S. Attorney
Don't spam the
General,
chat.
Maduro and his wife face a number of charges related to alleged drug trafficking, alleged machine gun possession, which is probably surprising given that he is the leader of Venezuela, a country with a military. And so there's likely to be a lengthy criminal proceeding. Whether
I'll
or
pass.
not,
Like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget.
To enter into a plea bargain or some sort of negotiated arrangement in the U.S. criminal justice system also remains to be seen. But I think these legal proceedings could be quite lengthy, and I would not want to prejudge their outcome.
And just finally on this little bit, if we can, Brian, you talked about this being essentially there had been a precedent before in terms of removing a military leader in a similar fashion. What about kind of foreign leaders facing trials in the United States. I mean, is there precedent for that?
Well, there is some recent precedent, of course, that the U.S. Prosecuted and convicted
Well, I don't
the
typically
former
go
leader
on
of
other
Honduras
people's
for
shows.
drug trafficking related
I
charges.
stopped doing that a
And
while back.
President Trump recently pardoned him, and so it really calls into question the rationale for this military intervention. The Trump administration, particularly Secretary of State Marco Rubio, have sought to paint Nicolas Maduro as a drug trafficker, as a quote narco terrorist. I think that marketing was for the benefit of the U.S. president as much as the public.
And just very finally, Brian, we talked about the implications here, and we have been talking about them.
All
particularly
hail
when
the
it comes to
peacemaker.
International law and the perception.
Trump is not a joke. He's a
other
president, and
countries
you
will
are a
have
crybaby.
around this. It's interesting thus far that European leaders are being pretty quiet in all of this, simply because I think they don't quite know what has gone on themselves. What's your sense of the implications potentially for international law, given what we do know has happened in the last 12 hours?
It's incredibly damaging and destabilizing. The prohibition on the use of force is really the cornerstone of international law and the international order, one that the United States itself helped to establish.
You can frame it
And
any
for
way
the
you
US
want.
to be, behaving this way, disregarding these prohibitions, is incredibly destabilizing, further undermines the international order, and frankly is contrary to President Trump's own stated objectives.
Everyone here can
winning
now
the Nobel
go
Peace
home.
Prize. That seems less likely today.
Okay, Brian, we really appreciate your time this afternoon. Brian Finucane there joining us.
I appreciate the engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's bring in Dominic Waghorn, who's our international
We're all
affairs editor.
interested in
We're
find
trying to
out,
get this post up on X, but I'll just read it out to you if I can. This is from J.D. Vance, of course, the U.S. Vice President, saying that the president offered multiple off-ramps, but was very clear throughout this process that drug trafficking must stop and the stolen oil must be returned to the United States. Maduro is the newest person to find out that President Trump means what he says. Kudos to our brave special operators who pulled off a truly impressive operation.
Yeah, I mean, that is.
Dominic, what do you make?
There's one thing you can't argue, man. That's impressive.
There's a case
That's
that he's
impressive.
trying
I
to
really
make
want to
laws
know all
out
the
around
details
why
surrounding
they've
it.
taken this action.
I want to know
There
the
also
details
seems to be
surrounding it,
rumors
who
of
they were
this
working with
idea
inside
that this
Venezuela,
was
all that
working,
kind of
that
stuff. And I
actually,
imagine we'll find some of that out today at 11 o'clock whenever Trump goes on and does a press conference.
Yeah, and actually Marco
I'll be
Rubio,
on for
the
that.
Secretary of State, who's a rival with
I'm
J.D.
very
Vance,
interested to
of
see
course,
what he
within the
says. I mean, we all should be. No matter
He's
what,
been
we
saying
should
for
all
the
be
last
interested
hour
to
or
see
so,
what he says.
briefing, Congress, members of Congress on Capitol Hill, they've been reporting him saying that this was quite simply a law enforcement operation. There was an arrest warrant for Nicolas Maduro, and the American armed forces went in there to exercise it. They were supported by the U.S. military, who protected them as they have a right to do under the U.S. Constitution. And so he got what was coming to him. You know, he had, as you say, as J.D. Vance was saying there, he was given an opportunity to make a deal with Donald Trump. He didn't take that opportunity, and therefore he's now going to face the full wrath of American justice.
Yeah,
now,
I guess he could have
some
gotten
previous
out,
guests were
right?
saying that is in total sort of contravention of international law. However legitimate he is as a president,
Can you
he
give
was
an
still the
example of
president
that?
Venezuela. Rubio's been saying he was not the president, but he hadn't been replaced by a president. He was the sitting leader of Venezuela, and the Americans have simply gone in there and arrested him. And that seems to be now the narrative the Americans are pushing, rather than what had been sort of emerging earlier, which was kind of Venezuelan generals and commanders handing him over. It was an internal change of power that the Americans were facilitating. No, the Americans are saying there was an arrest warrant out for him. He was guilty of wrongdoing, and we went to get him, and he'll be put on trial, which does set an extraordinary
You can't even see him.
and breaches fundamental principles.
Then also is fascinating for what happens in Venezuela next, as we heard from our guest who's in Caracas, that yes, the president may now be gone and his wife. We don't know about other senior members of the regime, but the government itself
Yeah,
has
it's going to be important to see what happens in the next few hours in
You
Venezuela.
have to wonder what deal has been done, and both
That's what I want to know.
Trump
What
and Marco
deal?
Rubio have been saying that this is very well planned, and you assume it wasn't planned up to the point of execution. There is a plan for what comes after. And if you've been able to send armed forces into Venezuela to get the president and his wife, seize them and fly them out, then you assume some kind of deal was done with.
Because there doesn't seem to be any actual opposition in terms of an actual fight back.
There was no clear firefight. There was no, and he was well protected. He was, we assume, protected by crack Venezuelan forces. There doesn't seem to have been a firefight. So, even if this wasn't a kind of facilitation of internal transfer of power, there does seem to have been a process where he was handed over by those around him in Venezuela. And so you assume there is some kind of plan for what comes afterwards. And
You
so
hope
have
there's a
those
plan for what
optimists
comes
like Eddie
afterwards.
Abrams earlier saying that he's fairly optimistic about the future. There are those who are worried, though, that there could end up with a vacuum that other forces could fill, and it could break down.
Like Bush let happen in
I think
Iraq.
There's a worry about what's happening in Venezuela, but also what
And
this means
Biden
for
let
the rest
happen
of the
in
region.
Afghanistan.
This is a president who, at the end of last year, came out with a security doctrine reiterating the Monroe Doctrine, which goes back to 1832, which said that America had a right to do what it wants in its own backyard, and Europeans stay out of that backyard. And in return for that, America wouldn't interfere on the continent of Europe. And that document made it fairly clear there was a corollary to that doctrine, which is that if there's chronic wrongdoing...
That's the thing. Remember when people in America had just a little respect for each other? Now it seems everyone has internet
Now, this
balls.
is the first instance of it doing so, but he's made noises about Panama. Of course,
Internet
about
ball, like my
Greenland as
Christmas
well.
beard
If he
balls.
follows through, as J.D. Vance is
Anyway.
saying, he's a man of his word.
Yeah, you know why? Because people don't get punched in the mouth anymore for being disrespectful like they used to be.
Other parts of America,
There's no
70 hours ago
consequences.
in Chile, and there have been celebrations there after Donald Trump announced these strikes. There we go. I mean, we do know, Dominic, don't we? There are a lot of Venezuelans. I mean, primarily in Colombia, it should be said, rather than Chile, but across the South American continent, given that many millions of them have fled, I should say, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, across the world, you know, was a population of 30 million, 7 or 8 million people. That's the population of London have fled Venezuela, and for Maduro's chronic mismanagement of the economy. That's around a quarter of the population. They've gone to Chile, they've gone to Colombia. Most of them are thinking Colombia, but you know, many have gone to America and to Europe, and they will now be hoping to go back. And you know, fundamental to this is that Maduro has been
Had to sneeze there. You never know what could happen. Don't want to do that on live.
Chavez, largely because he wasn't going to be a threat to Chavez. But when he was then appointed his successor, as Chavez then died, there was a lot of disquiet amongst
Maybe we
those
should have
who
ourselves a
support
panel
the Venezuelan
sometime.
Revolutionary Society. Who
I'd be
saw
willing
him
to do that, I think.
as completely out of his depth.
Get a
And
couple
he ruled
people
not
here.
quite
Anyone
confidently,
interested?
but
Shoot
by
me an email if
wasn't
you'd be interested to
confident
come on
enough,
and talk. Maybe we
repression,
can work something out.
persecution, locking up opponents.
And the one
It's
thing the US
available on my
president is
YouTube.
right about is that, you know, Venezuela should be a wealthy country. I mean, it's got the largest, I think, oil reserves in the world. And, you know, there was a time when...
Maybe we can have one after the
25, 30 years ago,
conversation
it
today
was
at
potentially
when Trump
gonna become
goes
a relatively
after his press
wealthy
conference at 11.
income country, and
yeah,
and Maduro seems to have gone their way. Let's talk, if we can, just briefly, Dom, about the wider context here, and something we've talked about with our guests as well. What do you think, you know, people in Moscow and Beijing and Tehran, and by the way, also in Brussels, London, Paris and Berlin will make about all of this?
I think European allies will be concerned, and they've been really alarmed by the direction of the world order, as we call it, under Donald Trump. He's a man who's very impatient about rules. He doesn't really buy into the idea that a group of nations together can make things better if they work together. He believes in this sort of zero-sum approach, that if you're going to have a deal or an arrangement, then for one country to do well, another must suffer. So he feels he's been ripped off by the current world, the rules-based world order. And they see him as undermining that, having undermined it for a year. And they're going to see this as Mr. Finnegan was saying earlier, as a direct sort of continuation of that. You know, if you can go in with your law enforcement officers backed by the military to arrest anybody that you want, what kind of precedent does that set? So the Europeans will be worried about it, but not as much as possibly Ayatollah Khamenei if he's sitting in Tehran. And of course, this week we also had Donald Trump warning him not just to go back to building nuclear weapons, but also saying if he opens fire on protesters, that America is locked and loaded and will support those protesters, sending a pretty clear message to the Iranians. So I think if you're, how many you're going to worry, you know, is the US fleet going to send us the Persian Gulf?
Well, there was a suggestion earlier that actually one of the reasons they may want to bring this to an end quite quickly is because they might want to redeploy those enormous resources they've had off Venezuela.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the concern if you're in Tehran. But if you're in Moscow or Beijing, I mean, obviously, you know, lots being said, this gives more of a green light to Xi Jinping to go and do to the leader of Taiwan, the president of Taiwan, what Trump has done to Maduro. It sets a precedent that the Chinese could benefit from. But I think also what's interesting is has a deal been done with Beijing and Moscow over Maduro, because they were supporters, very strong patrons.
In fact, we saw pictures, I think, with Chinese officials not that long ago meeting Maduro in Caracas.
Right. So if those around Maduro decided to give him up, did their patrons in Moscow and China say, "Yeah, the time is up"? And have they done a deal with?
Not too many times you're going to wake up and find out news like this.
Trump is leaders
that was
carving out
badass.
spheres of influence. As China,
whether it was right or wrong, is that to be.
You can have the
that was badass. You can't.
Russia wants to have.
Can't say it wasn't.
Well, I mean,
Chinese want parts of Pacific.
Isn't that the real concern? For European governments, for the Ukrainians, is that does this kind of almost legitimize Putin's actions in Ukraine and potentially actions in places like the Baltics as well?
I think it certainly undermines the Europeans' argument and what was the Americans' argument for supporting the Ukraine, that there was this rules-based world order where might cannot be right, where force cannot prevail, naked aggression cannot be rewarded.
Well, because Moscow's argument about eastern Ukraine is essentially that it's run by Nazis, that Russian speakers have been, essentially sidelined for years. The arguments, I mean, very different arguments from Venezuela, but essentially saying this is our backyard and we're protecting kind of our sphere of influence.
Yeah, Vladimir Putin not only says that, he says it is actually Russian territory. It's by rights part of Russia, not just the Donbass, but the whole of Ukraine. But there was, where we saw up to a year ago, a united Western stand against that active, unprovoked aggression, trying to seize territory by force. Now that's been watered down by an American president who seems to sympathize more with Moscow. And now it just seems to be undermined the rules-based world order further. And he's doing that because he believes in a different system. He doesn't believe in that multilateral post-World War II system. He believes in a system where you have sovereign nations, strong sovereign nations, protecting their own backyards and in competition. He regards a sort of healthy competition with each other. And that gives him a right to do what he wants in his own backyard.
And just in terms of President Trump himself, we've seen previous US presidencies defined almost by moments, if you like. I mean, you think of George W. Bush and 9/11, you think of President Obama.
Let's just hope this isn't just another Iraq, we can't have that where there's just a vacuum formed after we leave.
This could it be, this is supposed to be the question, could this be a pivotal moment in Trump's second term?
I think it is. I think
how is it not a pivotal moment? What a crazy question.
Was the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the Al-Quds leader of the IRGC in Iran, that totally changed the rules. Everyone thought, he would never do that. And it suddenly presented the American president as a totally unpredictable leader who had a lot more deterrence as a result. He's made it pretty clear that this kind of thing was going to happen, but he's now followed through on it, and I think in a way that has surprised many people, despite those sort of pretty clear predictions he was making about his own behavior. And I think you're right. I think this is the defining moment so far, certainly in terms of foreign policy for an American president, and that's partly probably because he's assailed at home with more and more problems, the Epstein scandal, the problems with the economy. But he's now pulled off an operation that has been very successful. The crucial thing is what happens next. If Venezuela descends into chaotic anarchy,
that narrative could change very quickly.
Do you remember that Colin Powell, the American former defense secretary, he referred to the Pottery Barn principle? Pottery Barn is a furniture store in America, soft furnishing store, and it had a rule that if you touch something and it breaks, it's your responsibility. And Colin Powell said to George W. Bush, the same rule applies now with you in Iraq. Now, Donald Trump has now touched Venezuela in a pretty fundamental, decisive way.
He has.
It falls apart, descends into chaos,
I mean,
then it's on his watch.
We all remember, of course, that mission accomplished sign effectively on that aircraft carrier with George W. Bush, and that didn't work out very well.
We aren't
Dominic,
at
Thank you
war.
very much indeed.
This is a military action.
Jensen Jones, an arms
Totally legal
intelligence specialist.
in reference to the presidency.
Very good afternoon to you. What we were just talking there about.
Like I said, right now, all we're going to hear is different speculation from different people. They're just these channels are going on to try and get people to come on just to keep the cycle moving, so that they can have different opinions put out there. But we don't know what to think yet.
Had some of the hallmarks of a Special Operations Forces raid, including the mix of vehicles that we saw. So we saw helicopters that were consistent with what we'd expect to be flown by the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment.
Yep, Maduro was captured.
Blackhawks and some with specific Special
His wife
Operations
as well.
Forces modifications. So
pretty early telltale sign that the intent there was a special operations raid of some sort, rather than a wide-scale invasion. Of course, everyone was waiting to see what would happen next, and it looks like they got their man and got out again.
We've heard time and time again from US officials in the last couple of hours or so about how well this has gone and how much planning went into this operation. Just give us a sense. I mean, the US have obviously got the most powerful military force on the planet, but give us a sense of the type of planning and the type of scenarios effectively that military planners would have to come up with, given the complexity of an operation like this.
Sure. Yeah. Look, I don't want to speak too much, I guess, to areas that are better left to my colleagues in the armed forces. But in a general sense, we know that the package here involved a wide range of assets from across the different branches of the military. So this isn't something that's organized just with a dozen or a few dozen individuals on the ground. It involves, of course, the breadth of the armed forces. So you have Navy assets involved in the area. You have the USS Iwo Jima. The MV Ocean Trader, for example, both reported in the region likely to be motherships for this sort of assault. And then you have a wide range of aircraft that will definitely have been involved. So aircraft conducting surveillance and intelligence operations. You'll have aircraft that were on standby to conduct search and rescue.
I'd rather have cartels than maggots.
All sorts of different missions.
What an intelligent statement that is. Oh, I'm sorry, a telling statement that is.
In general terms, although the impact, the sort of number of explosions we saw, the size and the volume of the strikes, if you like, was relatively low. The planning that goes into something like this is
Isaac is a Christian name.
And just briefly, if you can, because we're coming up to the top of the hour. I mean, you've seen operations kind of similar to this, I suppose, in the past. I mean, is your sense that there must have been some assistance from the Venezuelans, given how protected Maduro would have been and how little actual physical fight back there seems to have been?
Yeah, look, it's certainly speculative at this stage. I think it speaks to one of a number of possible factors. There's definitely some sort of systemic failure inside the Venezuelan armed forces, and or the possibility of some collusion from certain elements within Venezuela. I don't think that can be ruled out. And indeed, as you said,
there are people that are this stupid right here. Donald Trump raped his daughters. He said it on television.
A more robust response. So
no,
I think it's fair
he didn't.
To examine
you probably heard he did.
Yeah, as in, it may also be that they were caught very much by surprise, would you say?
Certainly. I mean, I think that is certainly the case either way. Whether or not there was some other sort of complicating factors at play remains to be seen. But certainly the operation was swift. It was precise.
You know, if there are benefits to this, because America looks strong again. Don't F with us type situation. And America should be in that position in the world. The world is better off when you have a strong America. Much better off when you have a strong America.
Thank you very much indeed for your time here on Sky News. Well, as I say, we are continuing to follow this developing story. We know that we are going to hear from the US President Donald Trump, as you can see on the side of your screen there, at 4 p.m. this afternoon. Many, many questions in place about this attack on Venezuela and indeed the country's future.
Yeah, so we'll have Trump on here in about 2 hours.
It is 2 o'clock. I'm Darren McCaffrey. We are continuing to follow this major international breaking news story this afternoon, and that is that the U.S.
Let me step away for a minute here. I'm going to keep this going.
The United States has captured the Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and flown him out of the country after a series of airstrikes. Sources inside the opposition have told Sky News they believe the capture was a negotiated exit. Meanwhile, the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says that Mr. Maduro and his wife have been charged with narco-terrorism and drug offenses and were possessing machine guns to be used against the United States. Well, this is how Donald Trump confirmed the military action on Truth Social. He said that the United States of America successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Well, video footage captured in the capital city shows a series of explosions. At least 7 were heard in the early hours of the morning. And in the past half hour, Venezuela's defense minister said his country would resist and that some civilian areas had been hit. Well, sirens could be heard across the city with plumes of smoke rising into the sky. The Venezuelan government has declared a state of Meanwhile, strikes were heard in the capital Caracas, as well as in the states of Miranda, Aragua and La Guaira. Sky News has been verifying the locations of some of those strikes. And as you can see, this is some of the footage that was filmed overnight. As I say, the details are still pretty scarce, but the defense minister has ordered the army onto the streets. And we have seen some videos circulating on social media showing some military vehicles patrolling the presidential palace.
I live here in Chacao. Approximately an hour and a half ago, we felt planes flying and explosions. Several explosions, at least 8 or 10. And now I went out to look around, and now all you see is smoke.
Well, if we look at these pictures, you can see some Chinook helicopters, often used, of course, by militaries to carry special forces. But the only country in the region that uses Chinooks is the US, meaning that it is most likely American military aircraft we're seeing over the Venezuelan capital. And what appears to be, as I say, we're just talking about this earlier, those military, it looks like a tank effectively outside the presidential palace in Caracas, clearly patrolling there in the early hours of this morning. Well, sirens and explosions could also be heard in the background amid reports that people were fleeing the capital. There's also footage of the damaged port of LaGuardia as images continue to emerge of the aftermath of those strikes, some fires burning there. And we're also starting to see some images showing the potential of a little bit of unrest in Caracas. These pictures show armed men confronting cars and firing gunshots. Venezuela's interior minister has been seen wearing protective gear and surrounded by armed men, trying to reassure people.
I call on our people to remain calm, trust in our leadership, trust in the political and military high command to handle the situation we are facing. Remain calm, do not give in to despair, do not make things easier for the invading enemy, the terrorist enemy that cowardly attacked us. Do not make things easier for them. This is not the first struggle. It is not the first battle that some have waged against this people, believing that they will defeat us.
Well, we've also heard from Pam Bundy. She, of course, is the United States Attorney General. This is in relation to President Maduro himself, saying, and his wife, that they would face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts on behalf of the entire United States Department of Justice. I would like to thank President Trump for having the courage to demand accountability on behalf of the American people. And a huge thank you to our brave military who conducted the incredible and highly successful mission to capture these two alleged international narco traffickers. And also in the last 30 minutes or so, we've heard from the US Vice President, J.D. Vance. He's posted on X saying the president offered multiple off-ramps, but was very clear throughout this process, the drug trafficking must stop and the stolen oil must be returned to the United States. Maduro is the newest person to find out that President Trump means what he says. Well, let's bring in our US correspondent, David Bevins, who's live for us in Washington this afternoon. David, very good afternoon to you. We've been obviously trying to work out, haven't we, for the last 5 or 6 hours or so, what has gone on here. It seems to be, from what we can read, that actually this operation was taken to remove the president, but not necessarily to change the government in Venezuela.
Yes, this remains a very fluid situation. President Trump posting not from the Situation Room at the White House, but from Mar-a-Lago in Florida, that large-scale strikes had taken place and that President Maduro and his wife had been captured, to quote Donald Trump, and taken into U.S. custody. It is, by any stretch of the imagination, an extraordinary and controversial breach of another nation's sovereignty. What began with explosions in the dead of night, 7 of them over Caracas and surrounding provinces, ending with a president and his wife in US custody. Now, the strikes themselves were no surprise. They've been coming for months. But the capture of Maduro, as Trump is framing it, certainly is a significant escalation, and it raises huge questions. But bear in mind what Pam Bondi, the US Attorney General, is saying, because they are going to use the indictment in an attempt to justify these actions. He's been charged, along with his wife, with a number of drugs offenses and possession of machine guns and other destructive devices.
I'm going to pull this
But
down.
if you take those comments alongside
Little
those
bit.
from the vice president who's commending the efforts of US.
So essentially, what we got here is Donald Trump ordered a military action.
US soil at last. It's very difficult to see how this could be
A military action against Venezuela. Went in middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. and got their president and the first lady, apparently, of their country. Hang on, I got a bunch of stuff going on here.
Lots and lots of questions. And this could be quite a pivotal moment for the US president. We are going to hear from him a little later on, aren't we? Not least because
It's important because essentially drugs have been coming in from Venezuela for decades. Ever since Hugo Chavez went in there and made it a communist country, socialist country, the people have been oppressed. This has been going on for 30-some years now. And it's important. It's that tricky question of what are we doing? Like, are we doing a regime change? Like, we don't want that. We don't want regime change. We don't want to be in there forever. Why do they keep saying he was captured? He was kidnapped? Whatever. I think it was more captured. Anything to distract from the pedophiles. It's pretty incredible what's happening. That's for sure. It's unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. I don't think you can compare it to Noriega, but it's a little different.
Question as well of how other countries around the world will view this intervention by the United States. We know that Venezuela.
Why is Trump gay for dictators? Some of these people out here. Let me mute that. Let's go back to this here. Why are they all highlighted for me? There we go. Okay, I was having some issues. All right. So why is this important? It's important because he's an unelected dictator that was pushing drugs and convicts into our country for years. And I don't know. I don't know what to think yet. I want to wait and see. Like I said, Trump's going to be on at 11. We'll be on again for that. We're going to have that live, and then we're going to have some comments after it. That should be at 11. So knowing Trump, that'll be 11:15, 11:20. Usually he's a little bit late. I don't think this one's about oil. I don't think it's about drugs either. I think it's about pushing China's influence out of our hemisphere, and as well as getting Maduro out. But I think it's about getting Chinese influence out of our hemisphere and Russian as well. Any military attack on foreign land is a declaration of war. Why are the Democrats on the wrong side of every issue? This is very intelligent here. Trump is a pedo. Yeah. So as far as the news and everything like that, if you're going to watch any more news, nothing new is going to come out. There's not going to be any new news made outside of what happens in Venezuela right now. And it looks like there's people coming into the streets. Looked like they were a lot of supporters of Maduro. The crowd didn't look that big, but I want to see what unfolds in Venezuela. They're going to be leery because if it goes to if the vice president of the same administration takes charge, the people are going to be leery about coming out and celebrating that because they don't know how the government's going to react. They used to be oppressed and killed and all that kind of stuff for these kind of things. You're not allowed to go out there and protest and such. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting thing to see. Like I said, we'll be here for the live press conference at 11 o'clock. I hope you guys come back, like, share, and subscribe. Check out the store. The link's in the description. I got a Substack that you should definitely check out. All that stuff is on social media is at MagAmericans. So take a look at that stuff. We'll have a great day. We'll see you back here at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time there, Julius. Make sure we're all back. We got to take a break, eat some breakfast, say some prayers, find some peace, and let's come back and get some perspective on it after Trump has a chance to come out and give his press conference. Hopefully he'll and like Trump usually does, I'm sure he'll be answering questions from the press. That's going to be the important part. What's more important to me than what his statement is what his response is to the press, and the questions that they ask. Oh, okay, Julius. Well, you can always catch it on the replay. You can always catch it on the replay. When I go on, I'm gonna let Trump's thing play out, and then we'll do some comments after that. We'll talk to the chat, see how we feel about it. In the meantime, check out my social media and stuff. That'll fill the time for you. You don't want to just sit around and do nothing. You don't want to sit around and do nothing. Trump's response to the press will be to call names and dodge any accountability. Interesting. You can come watch me live. I restreamed this. Forgot to mention at the beginning. Well, that's what we do when we don't have any of our own talent. That's what people do, man. They try to get on the backs of other streamers that have people watching and get their people to go over there and watch them. But whatever. Good luck. I'm thinking most people that enjoy my show aren't going to enjoy that, but it'll be fun. I'm sure it'll be fun. It'll be great. God bless you guys. Again, say some prayers. And like I say sometimes, is say a prayer. Pray for your enemies. Pray for your enemies out there. And whoever's name popped in your head just now and you're like, oh, I don't think I can pray for that person. I can't pray for that person. Pray for that person in particular. Pray for that person. We'll be back at 11 a.m. We'll see you then. God bless.
Americans.